starting lineup of your favorite show. At producer, 5'11" from Blanchester, the Cow Killer, Casey McCollister. And comic engineer, standing at 4'8", the pride of the West Side, Elliot Rearing. And your host, weighing 150 pounds, soaking wet, from Hamilton, Ohio, Ace Fowler.
All right, well, welcome into a lovely edition, a draft day edition of Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Trey Fowler, joined as always with the cast of characters, and it's finally here. It's finally here. We can put away all the mock drafts finally tomorrow. Well, tomorrow there'll still be mock drafts about round 2 and then the weekend. But here soon, at least we won't have to sit here and debate over what this team's going to do, that team's going to do. It'll all be done, as they say. And you know what? I'm looking forward to that because there's nothing worse than speculation. And speaking of speculation, we'll get into Trey Hendrickson. What's going to happen with him? He obviously is now requesting a trade. Says that he's out. Just signed a deal last year that he was happy with. Not happy anymore. We'll see. We got some divisive reactions in the room. I think we're all over the place. I don't want to get into that quite yet because, as always, I'm going to ask you first and foremost. We got the big wig in here today, Mr. Elliot Rearing. Nice to see you. I'm glad you made it back. Last night you were sitting with the wealthy, they say.
I was with the rich.
And how'd that go?
It was a blast. There was a couple celebrities that were there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I want to mention.
Name drop?
Huh?
You gonna name drop?
I will name drop them. But real quick before I mention them, there was a couple sitting next to me, and by couple I mean, and again, I'm not going to judge a lifestyle, but it appeared to be a man and 2 women, and they appeared to be together. Not going to judge that lifestyle, but that appeared to be the case there.
Yeah.
And they were ordering constantly hummus. When the waitress came over and they're like, "Hey, can I get a little bit of hummus?" And they kept asking for hummus.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite understand it because you're at a baseball game. And they also kept asking for
Hummus
like
is great.
They kept asking for blankets and stuff. Like it was like a VIP experience for these people. I'm like, I'm trying to watch baseball. But shout out to them. I don't know who they are. I'm sure they had a great time afterwards. Let me see. There was Mayor John Cranley was there and was in the house.
Would have never noticed.
He was in the front row, so a little funny story there. My dad and I were like 6 rows back from that section, and it appeared Mayor Cranley got up and left, and he knows my dad from work at Elder or something. I don't know what he knows him from, but he knows him, and he says, "Hey, Tom, we're leaving. It's too cold for us. We're going out, and we're going inside." So we asked the usher, who's right by us, and he was kind of checking tickets, making sure nobody steals. Hey, we know him. Can we take that front seat? And then we went up, took the front seat. And then Mayor Cranley came back like in the bottom of the 9th and said, "Hey, those are my seats." He was joking. It was very funny. But he was there. Former head coach of UC basketball, John Brannon, was there.
Wow.
He blocked you.
Directly in front of me. I was trying to tell my dad, "Yeah, this guy has me blocked on Twitter." I think we're over it now. He definitely doesn't remember who I am, but we exchanged a high five. We both looked at it. I think I said behind him right before Santiago Espinal got the RBI hit. I said, "Please don't swing. Please don't swing." And John Brannon, he joined me in saying, "Yes, please don't swing." And then when he swung, got an RBI, we just looked at each other and gave each other a silent high five. So that was a very fun moment. I'm trying to think of anybody else who was there. I can't think off the top of my head right now. But those were the 2 big ones. Right. The seats were phenomenal. It's always a fun time living with the rich people. I can't imagine doing that every single game because you get there like an hour before and you're eating dinner. Like I had some sort of haddock, some sort of fish beforehand. Very, very
right
good.
Out of the Ohio River or what?
Right out of the Ohio River. Bobby C. went out there
tasty.
and fished it himself. And it was tasty. It was very good.
Would you say it's better than a fillet of fish?
It is better than the fillet of fish. I can say that. There was also some blue cheese mashed potatoes. Didn't know they were blue cheese. Don't like blue cheese. Ooh. Ate it, but I felt like I was being rich, so I had to eat it. So like if you're experiencing like rich food that doesn't taste good, you just eat it because you want to be rich. But it was very fun. It was very, very, very fun.
Really quick question on the experience of the
Did you see me on the TV?
I was showed a picture of you. I did not see you live on the television. I did send out a little message though quickly when I checked the game. I couldn't see you at first. So I sent the message and asked you if you were sitting back there with the pores.
So my phone died around the 6th inning. So I didn't know I was going to move up, and when I got the chance to move up, I was going to start asking people to give me things to do on the TV, but I didn't have my phone. I couldn't do it.
That's a big swing and a miss by you.
Big swing and a miss. So I got my dad's phone. He's got a Twitter. So I DM'd Kirby, but when it was too late, I'm like, Kirby, I'm on the TV. Take pictures. Tell me what to do. Unfortunately, it was too late. The game had already ended. But yeah, it was a great game. I'm 1-1 now in the Diamond seats. I'm 1-1, 2-2 on the season at Reds games.
The fact that you've been in the Diamond seats 2 times now.
In 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, that's living right.
Living right.
I don't know exactly what you got to do to be able to get in those Diamond seats, but
you ever sat in
But I've not. No, I've not. Now I've always questioned the idea of doing it because I'm open to spending some money to go and have experiences, but I've never thought the price tag to go sit in those seats seemed like it was worth it. I was going to ask Elliot one last quick question on this.
I was going to say my favorite part about it was all these people are so rich. They'll order food and then they'll eat like one bite and they'll throw it on the floor. There was the couple next to us that I mentioned, or the tri-couple, whatever you call them. They ordered legitimately like two hot dogs and pretzels. They took one bite of each and then threw it on the floor.
Well, they probably didn't think it was very good. That's what my guess is.
Not enough hummus at all.
My guess is they didn't think it was good. They're not paying for it. They already paid for it, right? Like it's free. It's included in your ticket price. Yes?
Yes.
So there you go. I mean, it's like one of those things where you realize that you don't like it, so why force yourself to eat something if you don't like
That's
it?
fair. That's fair.
I think that's the mindset that some of the wealthy have. And, hey, they've gotten to be where they're at in life for a reason, so kudos to them. My quick question to you was, what is the actual viewing experience down there? Because I've always wondered, are you so low and so close to the net, does it feel like is it semi-bothersome when you're sitting there to watch the game at all?
Not even a little bit. I didn't notice it once. I really didn't.
That's fair.
I thought it was a great view of Nick Lodolo. I had a great personal view of Nick Lodolo, so that's all that I cared about. And I'm sure there might be a couple seats in there where if you're like directly behind the umpire, maybe it's not as good.
Yeah.
But every other seat in there is pretty damn good.
I was going to ask you so you think that those are legitimately the best seats that you can watch a game from if you got to go anywhere else in the stadium, or you still think you'd like to sit somewhere differently to watch the actual game? Not the experience, just the game.
I think it's the best place to watch a game. Yeah, I do. I think there's a couple just because the net. I would have said like some places around the first and third base line if that net was never extended.
I agree.
But they extended it, so why not sit behind the plate?
That's why I asked about the net. Not that we get into the nerds of sitting places at Great American Ballpark, but I do think if you go down the baselines a little bit now this is going to sound like I don't want to sound like pretentious or anything like that, but if you get down like the first 6 or 7 rows down the line and you're kind of looking, I guess it'd be like diagonal. The net kind of plays a factor. Right. If you're looking directly at the net and you're 8, 9 rows back, then it's not a big deal at all. The first time I went to a game and you're up on the concourse, I remember thinking, I thought they were supposed to put nets in. And then, I immediately realized, I was already looking through the net. So, shout out to Nets, by the way. I mean...
Remember that fight?
My gosh. Yeah, there's always a fight.
That was a rule change people died on. That was a hill people died on.
And then it happened, and then, by 2 weeks into the season, they're like, oh. Okay.
Yeah. Probably a good idea we don't have, kids getting killed in the stands.
How many little kids have to take one off the dome to change that rule?
Right. Well... Who knows?
It took way too long.
All right, we are going to be running through some headlines probably as quickly as possible. If we go over, that's okay. But you know why? Because we're not on the radio.
Well, there is no going.
We're not on the radio.
Can't go over today.
We're a free bird today. We're a free bird, which is kind of a nice feeling if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Sometimes that
feels incredible.
Sometimes what's that?
That feels incredible.
Yeah. Sometimes that kind of bears on you. You look over and Elliot's doing this number to you, and you're just. It really just racks my brain sometimes, and hey, today we're free. Don't have to worry about the radio.
No radio.
Which is good news. Why is that? Why don't I have to worry about the radio, Elliot? Why don't you let the people know?
Because the Cincinnati Reds are playing a baseball game.
That's right. Speaking of that, headlines.
Headlines, sure. MLB. So we're going to go through the Reds. I know everybody that watches the show has seen it, but I have to do it. I'm just going to do it anyway. The Reds win 7-4. They now own the tiebreaker over the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yes, they do.
Own the tiebreaker over the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm sure that'll come into play later on. Nick Lodolo went 5 innings. He came out for the 6th. Unfortunately, they pulled him immediately. He gave up 6 hits, 3 earned runs. He struck out 4. Not a bad day for Nick. Fernando Cruz had another 2 big outs of relief, and Alexis Diaz obviously closed the door. Another 3-hit game for Ellie De La Cruz. This guy is legitimately unstoppable. He added 3 stolen bases just for fun. A struggling Will Benson had 2 hits, including a home run last night. Tyler Stevenson's starting to heat up. Another multi-hit game. I don't know how many multi-hit games that is in the last week, but that's at least 2 or 3. Santiago Espinal. He entered this series with 5 hits, including 1 extra base hit. The last 2 nights, 5 hits, 2 extra base hits, one of those being a home run. Shout out to Santiago Espinal. I think everybody in Reds country slandered him a little bit, and it's always fun to see a guy shut up the fan base for like a 1 to 2 game stretch. Zach Wheeler will take on Nick Martinez this afternoon, 1:40 for the series finale. I wasn't going to mention this, but I saw it on Twitter, and I'm going to mention it now. The Bats, they won 2-1. I don't care about this. I want to make that very clear what happens with the Louisville Bats record. But Reese Hines did go 1 for 4 with a double. Ian Jabot and Tony Santillan pitched 2 innings of scoreless relief, adding 2 strikeouts a pop. So shout out to those guys. Leon Richardson also pitched well, 5 1/3, allowed 1 hit, and struck out 8. Around the league, the Cardinals, they beat up on the Diamondbacks 5-1. The Mets, they finally took a game from the Giants yesterday. They won 8-2. The Orioles, they win the series against the Angels on a win 6-5 yesterday. The Red Sox, they blanked the Guardians 8-0. Nil is a soccer term, Casey. That's a soccer term. Brewers win 3-2 in another low-scoring affair with the Pirates. Dodgers, they obliterate the Nationals 11-2. Rays beat the Tigers 7-5. And Yankees, they take the series from the Athletics, winning 7-3 last night. The Cubs, they look to sweep today.
Yeah.
Against the hapless Astros. Astros stink.
We play Hall of Famer today, Justin Verlander. Almost a Red, former Red. We'll just call him a former Red. Justin Verlander, former Red Justin Verlander.
We had the tiebreaker to get Verlander. to get Verlander.
Whatever.
NL Central standings, just taking a look at them right now. Brewers are 15-8, first place. The Cubs are 15-9 in second place. The Reds, right behind them, 14-10, are in third place. It's the best start to the season for the Reds in nearly 20 years, which is kind of absurd, if I'm going to be honest with you. Pirates and the Cardinals are playing catch-up. They're in fourth and fifth. Those teams stink. And honestly, I want an apology from Reed when the Pirates missed the playoffs, winning 65 games this year. NBA. The Thunder crushed the Pelicans. They take a 2-0 series lead. They won 124-92. Shai Alexander dropped 33 points en route to their victory. The Heat, the Miami Heat, Eric Spoelstra, they upset the Celtics 111-101. They split the series one apiece. Tyler Hero scored 24 points, 6 for 11 from 3. Tatum and Brown combined to score 61 points. It was not enough. Bearcats basketball. Why am I talking about Bearcats basketball? They're finalizing a deal to play Dayton yet again at the Heritage Bank Center.
What a treat.
Wow.
What a special treat.
What a
Nice.
treat.
Maybe more than 7 Bearcats fans will show up to that game next time. And also, they'll maybe make a couple of free throws. So shout out to Dayton, shout out to the Bearcats. Bengals news. Trace already said it, so no really point of saying it. Trey Hendrickson signed a deal last year, doesn't like his deal anymore, and he's threatening to retire. Good luck, buddy.
We'll talk about it here in a moment.
Yes, we will.
Is that the final?
That was
Is that the
slightly
final topic you have?
That's the final headline.
All right. Well, listen. Before we get into the Trey Hendrickson thing, I do want to make it known that if we could just find a way to get a new arena, that will be the biggest thing that happens in this city. And since when? I mean, honestly, since when? I guess
Since the ballpark?
since
03?
yeah, but I mean, what about the
the
Paul
banks?
Brown? What about the state? The banks.
TQL.
How about since they built the banks in
The
like
banks.
2010? Whenever that was.
TQL.
By the way, the banks is slept on because I don't know, like
Oh, the
that
banks is great.
that completely
Slept on.
changed the narrative of downtown, like around the ballparks. It used to be just literally nothing but parking lot, right?
Oh,
It was
yeah.
just like it looked like
love the banks.
what Kansas City basically has.
Are we
which is
getting the soccer stadium TQL or what?
I don't think we're forgetting it. Now, speaking of soccer, I do think
forget.
I'm going to
Wait,
go
we think
Saturday,
that the
maybe.
Banks is
But
better
here's the
than
thing. I'm
TQL?
kind of with Elliot right now. I was thinking, you know what? I don't like giving Elliot much credit. I don't love that game's starting on Saturday night at like 8 o'clock or something.
Terrible start times, dude.
8:30.
Horrible
What do you
start
expect
times.
them to do?
I
during
know.
the
I mean,
season,
with all
though?
honesty, like, and it's not like they have to cater to the casual fan. But I got to be honest. Like, if it was like a 4 o'clock kickoff, and I could go down there, and I could be out of there
Absolutely.
by lunch, or I could be out of there by
Absolutely.
dinner,
when there's big noon kickoff during the football season. So
Yeah.
No, that's not going to work.
Well, big
It's not
noon
gonna
kickoff is
work.
kind of a
I
big
stand-
deal.
I know.
Starts
Listen.
at noon though, Casey, not 9
Yeah,
o'clock at night.
but you got, I don't know. What do you want them to do? They're going to
8
compete
p.
with.
I'll tell you
might be
what.
a little late. 8 p. might be a little late.
I think it's like actually. What time is it? It's 7:30. Because if it's 7:30, I'll take it all back.
It's 7:30.
Okay. All right. I'll take it all back. It's part
You
of
can
the
take
deal.
a family down there at 7:30.
You can. You can. It's just one of those things where I have a situation on my hands now for Saturday because when you have kids, you have to be semi-entertaining. So there's a situation where I think there's like a ballpark tour Saturday that I plan to go take them down to Great American. Whatever, cool little thing to do.
Yeah.
But that's like at 9 a.m. So I'm stuck. Like I know it sounds like a really tough,
you're not going to that-
really
you're not
really
going to
tough.
that game.
Don't feel sorry for me.
You're not going to that game.
That's what I'm saying.
I know you.
You go down to the
You're not
game.
spending an entire day
I
down
can't.
there.
I
Yeah,
can't. Like,
it's-
what do you go to the zoo or something? Like, it
Well,
just.
it's
Yeah.
a delight. The
seems
aquarium's a
great.
delight.
Right. What other things in downtown are which could burn some time up for? When I say burning time, we're talking like 10 hours.
Go to Newport.
Yeah, you can go to Newport.
Yeah,
you can go to the
the
aquarium, go see a
aquarium.
movie.
Aquarium's too expensive. Don't go to the aquarium.
Aquarium's very expensive. But yeah,
all
go to
right.
the zoo.
Biden inflation really hit the aquarium industry
ticket
hard.
We got
the-
the zoo. We got
What's a
the
ticket to the
aquarium.
aquarium cost?
I think it's like $7.
Is the Children's Museum
What?
like? Is that? Have you been to the? When was the last time you guys been to the Children's Museum? Is that what it's called? By the way, I think that's what it's called.
The Natural History Museum?
Is it a children's museum or is it?
I think it's called the Natural History Museum.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe it's a science center. Speaking of which, science centers are slept on. I don't know if you guys have been to those. I started obviously not a big
$40.
brain guy
I was
here.
wrong. $40.
But I always look up science centers in different cities. There's one in Kansas City, just so you know, or St. Louis.
Really?
It's so great I can't even remember where it's from.
Have you been?
It's unreal. It was literally unreal. Like as an adult, I was just like, "This is awesome." I guess.
Cosine.
I was gonna say, have you been?
It turns out like if science isn't taught by a 50-year-old teacher that's just in monotone voice the whole time, it actually can be semi cool.
The
It is.
museum is called the Museum
No
of Natural
disrespect to the
History and
50-year-old
Science.
semi monotone teachers.
No disrespect.
Yeah, you could go to the Omnimax.
The Omnimax.
Yeah.
That thing's pretty cool.
That is
That's
neat.
pretty cool.
That's neat.
We saw the bit. Trace and I
Roger
saw
says
the
the
real
Children's
one in
Museum
Vegas.
Center. I feel like I've been
It's the
there.
Museum of Natural
Sphere.
History and Science is what it's called.
All right. Let's talk about Trey Hendrickson. I know that this is gonna get a little sideways. I guarantee it because I can already tell. I come in the office today. Obviously, I sit these things out a little bit. I don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers. I'm trying to be nice about it. I'm like, listen, there's this Trey Hendrickson scuttlebutt, right? It's like I don't know what you make of it. So on the periphery, when you're not a fan, you try to look at things and you just try to take them for what they are. I'm gonna say this to get it started. And I'm not saying what I'm saying is 100% factual. I'll just say I have no dog in the fight. This isn't me. This is just my strictly outside looking in what I expect to have happen. Trey Hendrickson signs a deal. At that time when he signs a deal, he's got security, right? He knows if he goes and he blows out, his leg or something along those lines, still going to get paid the guaranteed money.
Well,
Then, what's that?
well, that actually didn't happen, really.
What?
When he signed that extension, it was more or less to just get extra money. He has no more guaranteed money.
He didn't get any more guaranteed money. You're telling me when he signed that extension last year, he didn't get a single dollar of more guaranteed money? I wanted to fact check that.
For last season he did. For 2024 or 2023.
Whatever. My point is that he got something out of the deal. He
Yeah.
signed the deal because he was getting something.
he got a little extra money.
Yeah, he got some extra money, which is kind of a big deal when you're signing contracts. That's part of maybe the reason that you're signing him in the first place. My main point is this: you sign the deal. He realizes after he has another great season that really he's not getting paid fairly and equitable based off of other people. But you did sign a deal. So you find yourself in this precarious position where do you want us to take the side of ownership, which most fans don't do more times than not? Why? Because the ownerships are the ones that have the ownership groups or the owner themselves usually have incredible wealth, right? They're the ones that are writing the checks, so you don't feel nearly as sorry for the folks that are incredibly wealthy. You'd err on the side of the person that you watch every single Sunday or you watch whatever sport you're watching, and you enjoy them for what they are and who they are and the fact that they make plays and that makes you happy. You're going to side with that person more often than not. But I do think in this weird situation now where you sign a contract that closely to when you decide that you're going to perhaps hold out, there's going to be the other side of the aisle. There's going to be people that are obviously very, very upset at Trey Hendrickson. And if you want to say it's not Trey Hendrickson, you want to push the blame on his agent, that's fine. They're one of the same to a certain extent, right? Hendrickson has to ultimately sign the deal. And yes, he's the one that signed that agent. So in essence, it kind of falls in the lap of Hendrickson. Fast forwarding here is this. It's as simple as this. Who has leverage? That's the question I have anytime you get in a spot where two people are arguing about something. Which side ultimately is the one that makes it go? And that is a very fair and honest debate that I'm sure we're about to have. Because the Bengals find themselves in a position where they don't have an edge rusher that you think can get to the quarterback all that well. Their defense struggled last year. If there was one part of this team that you're going to say, hey, this is the reason that they can't win a Super Bowl, you're probably going to point towards that defense. And Trey Hendrickson's one of the brightest spots that they have on that side of the ball. You remove him, you ask yourself, are you burning another year of Joe Burrow's time or that window of opportunity of time to win a Super Bowl if you decide that, you know what, kick rocks, Trey, you're not signing. But then if Trey decides, you know what, that's fine, I'll just retire. It's just money at the end of the day. I'm already a millionaire. I don't need the money. More importantly, I'd rather stick it to the man because I think I'm worth this. They can come off a little bit more cash because they got it. And I've proven that I'm worth more than what they're paying me now. Those are fair arguments and debates. But the question ultimately at the end of the day is who has the most leverage. We all know where this is going to go. This is my opinion. Trey's going to sit out. He's going to sit out. He's going to sit out. And he's going to do basically what Jones did last year with the Chiefs. And ultimately, I think the two will find some happy medium after week 1 or 2 when the season's over or started. That's my thoughts. You two have very differing views of this.
Yeah, I do. I think Trey and his agent, they look like jokes. And I say that with love, and I say that with maybe not respect, because you just signed the deal. You knew what you were signing, and then a year later you're like, oh, well, maybe I want a little bit more. I want my money guaranteed now. There's a lot more risk now. And it's because he's coming off a good season. He's coming off a very good season. He wants to parlay that into more money. I don't fault him for trying to win the lottery. If you go on X.com, there's a couple people that just like give out money, like Mr. Beast. Like if I DM'd Mr. Beast today and I said, hey, Mr. Beast, can I have $100? Maybe he says no. Maybe he says yes. Most likely I'm not getting a response. That's essentially what they did here. They're essentially coming out and saying, hey, Mike Brown or ownership, I'm gonna request a trade because I want more money. And if I have to imagine what happened, what Mike Brown did, I assume he looked at it and he laughed. I'm sure that's what happened. They laughed because it's a joke. I don't know how this walking back on contracts became acceptable or became part of the commonplace, the norm of sports, and it really has been. College coaches do it nonstop, and certainly professional athletes do it. Professional athletes do it mainly to get more guaranteed money because there is the risk of injury. But they look like jokes. Trey Hendrickson, you look like a joke. I'm very, very sorry about it, but you do when you do something like this. This is preposterous. This is outrageous. I think he threatened retirement, and if you want to retire, buddy, you go ahead and retire. But I don't think he's going to retire. He's not going to get traded. He's going to play week 1, and this is pretty much going to be a non-story. All this does is cause a little bit of a headache for the fan base and probably a little bit for the front office. But the hindsight is, if he really wants out, if you want out, maybe somebody's willing to overpay. I will say that. Maybe somebody during this draft tonight is going to look at Trey Hendrickson, look at this request, and say, hey, I like Trey Hendrickson. He could really help us out. Let's see what we can get for him. Maybe we'll get it. Well, maybe we'll give you a first-round pick for him. Maybe. Unlikely, but maybe.
What do we think he's actually worth? That's a fair and honest question, because I think that what he's suggesting, and I'm saying his agent and Trey are suggesting, is that they're worth more than what they signed their deal for. And one would ask the simple question back to them. Which is, why did you sign it?
Well,
why did you sign it?
Based off of his play, he's worth more than what he's getting paid. Don't get me wrong about that. But
100%.
But that's not how business works. Look, listen, I'm pro player. I'm anti all the things that you guys know of me, and I keep it all quiet. But you guys know how I lean. Here's what I think about this whole deal, though. When you do business, and when you sign an extension, you have 2 routes, right? Hey, I'm going to bet on myself. I'll take a 1-year deal. I'll show out, and then I'll get paid next year after I break records, break the franchise record, have an incredible year. Or, hey, let's just make it a safer deal, right? I'll sign the extension around what I'm worth right now, couple years, and give me some long-term stability. You can't renege on it once you have an amazing season. That's not how business works. You can't, like Hunter Green signs this 7-year deal with the Reds, whatever the deal is with Hunter Green, where he's getting paid $9 million a year.
Correct.
He can't this year win the Cy Young and go like, all right, I'm not playing unless you pay me $30 million now. That's not how that works. Ozzie Albies, who has that famous deal with the Braves, he can't just go back and be like, I'm not playing under the current contract. That's just not how it works. They're called contracts. There's a reason you get a notary to sign them. There's a reason that they're legally binding because they're contracts. And it's like it just seems like it's just bad business. It really is just bad business that you're going to essentially renege on a contract.
Correct, and I would say that there's probably a plethora of players out there that are underpaid based off of what they got paid previously, but when they signed the deal, they were signing something of some security blanket. That's the part of this that like you don't sign that deal last year if you're willing to bet on yourself.
Correct.
That's the crux of the deal. And my point at the beginning was if you're gonna sign that deal, when you sign it, you can take a breath of fresh air and know that if you do get hurt, right, you earn something that you probably wouldn't have earned otherwise. That's the risk that the business or the organization's taking. The risk you're taking is that if you go out and you play above your means or beyond what you thought even maybe yourself you were capable of doing, you can't then turn around and be like, well, wait a minute now. I didn't know. Now, to be fair, I would say this. To be fair, if it's a unbelievable amount, I think two people can sit down and renegotiate and say, you know what, we both understand that yes, you're not getting paid fairly, but you also have to understand that we also took a chance on you that if you underperformed, we were going to have to overpay for you. Right. Were you going to come back to the table? Was Trey going to come back to the table to the Bengals and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to give some money back because it didn't work out? I'm trying to think of all the guys. Did Mike Minor go back to the Reds and be like, you know what, guys? You know I didn't play all that well. Here's some cash back in your pocket because I kind of hosed you. Ryan Madsen, remember him? Dude never even pitched one single out. Didn't even throw one baseball for the Reds. Now, I know I'm using Reds as an example, but the point stands. You sign a contract, it's part of the deal. The question I ultimately have, though, that's the biggest question mark of all of this, we can get into, what the moral integrity thing is, what the right thing to do is. That's all irrelevant. What matters is whether or not he plays and how much he's actually worth. And I think if he wants to be considered one of the top rushers in the league, which his statistics say that, his sacks say that, but when I watch him play, and this isn't downgrading him by any imagination, he can't come in there and be like, I'm J.J. Watt. I'm Myles Garrett. Because he's not those guys.
I had this take much to the sorry, Casey, I'll give you a chance to talk at some point. But I had this take about Trey Hendrickson, and it was a little degrading. But I don't think Trey Hendrickson has offensive coordinators awake at night. I don't think people are waking up in a cold sweat because they got to play Trey Hendrickson, much like people do with Myles Garrett, much like they did with Aaron Donald. All that being said, he deserves more money than he's getting paid, but that's not how contracts work. And he walked into the wrong front office to ask for more because the Bengals are going to look at him and say, what? You signed a contract. We're not going to give you more money. And the reason I don't want them to pay Trey Hendrickson more money is because then you set a precedent that, hey, every team-friendly deal that we have going forward, if you exceed the team-friendly deal, then you can just walk on into Mike Brown's office and ask for a pay raise, and you get it. You get it. And that's not a precedent that you can set in a salary cap league. That's not the precedent that's going to be happening here with the Bengals. Casey, now you can talk.
Well, Reed, they already opened that can of worms by giving him that deal last year. They gave him more money last year. So that to me, they opened it. The box is open now. So, of course, he's going to ask for more money after he had a fantastic season last year. What you would say is a breakout season from the years prior.
It is.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think that he's played the same way every single season. The numbers suggest differently. That's neither here nor there. To me, and the ultimate question is whether or not he has a lot of leverage and how much he's worth. To me, I think he's worth the first-round pick. A very low first-round pick, right. A very high second-round pick.
That's probably right.
But I mean, that's pretty solid. I'm just looking right now. He was the 11th best or the 11th highest paid edge rusher right this second. He's looking at other guys like Brian Burns, like Montez Sweat, Daniil Hunter, who all have $25 million plus contracts this season. So you look at the numbers he's getting this year. In total, he's getting 20. I know his salary is like 15, but his like roster bonuses, including and all that, the cap number is 20. So he's getting underpaid by like $5 million. If you really want to like start pulling hairs or whatever, it's not that big of a deal.
You got it, yeah.
Yeah, it's not that big of a deal to me, especially from when you sign the deal. Of course, the market changes year to year.
Right.
The problem is the Bengals have a Super Bowl window. They have this window, and I know what Joe Burrow said, and yes, there's not a chance for us to win one without Joe Burrow. But you need to put the best pieces on your roster in order to be successful. That's just how it works. The Kansas City Chiefs don't win the Super Bowl without Chris Jones. The Bengals don't make it to the Super Bowl without Trey Hendrickson. That's simple as that, right?
I get it.
He's threatening retirement. And a team that was already at the bottom of the league in defense last year, who was already struggling with pass rush. We've seen what it looks like without Trey Hendrickson on the field. It's abysmal. And we lost DJ Reader. In my opinion, I think he holds a lot more leverage than people think. The Bengals don't necessarily have to do anything with that. But if he does retire, then what? You're with Sam Hubbard, who had reconstructive surgery.
If he's on the edge of retirement, then there's nothing really you can do anyways other than give him a deal to be like, hey, you got to – I'm not going to get bullied by Trey Hendrickson. And I get what you're saying, and you're right. Let's get a few points that are unequivocally right. One, Trey Hendrickson is underpaid for the performance that he had last year. That is, without a doubt, right. But that's the deal he signed. Number two, if Trey Hendrickson does not play on this defense, a defense that was 24th in pass rush win rate last year, this defense doesn't get to the quarterback very well. This defense isn't going to be very good. And to be quite honest, without Trey Hendrickson, this defense is a major liability for any aspirations that the Cincinnati Bengals have next year. To where, hey, I don't think that they can get back to the AFC Championship without Trey Hendrickson. But also, if you set the precedent and you think the precedent has already been set, I disagree. If you set the precedent that every time you have a breakout year, you can go into the front office and say, hey, I know I have a contract. I need more money now because of what I did last year. Then you're operating a business in a way that just cannot continue with already being strongholded by paying your star quarterback $55 million. You can't have that every single time that Cam Taylor-Britt next year leads the league in interceptions. Oh, I need to be the top paid cornerback. He's not on his second contract yet, but you get the precedent that I'm trying to set here. All those things are true. I'm calling his bluff. If he wants to retire, I can't keep you from retiring. I will admit that just like the T. Higgins stuff, we talked about the T. Higgins stuff for 4 months. What are we going to do? We're going to trade him. We're going to do this. And from the get-go, we knew what the most likely scenario was with T. Higgins. We knew that from the get-go, the most likely scenario is that he gets franchise tagged and he plays under that franchise tag, and then he walks out the door next year. Now, with Trey Hendrickson, we can talk about all these scenarios. We can do all this stuff. We go, maybe they'll trade him. Maybe they'll extend him. Maybe he retires. Maybe he doesn't show up. The most likely scenario is that he holds out during training camp and shows up week 1, week 2, and plays next year under the current contract that he has.
There's a couple other things I want to just lay out there on the table for us, because this is a multifaceted issue right now for the Bengals, because the optics of this don't look good. You got 2 of your top 5 players, I'm going to say the top 5, don't want to be here anymore. They want out. They want traded because of what? Contract disputes, not getting enough guaranteed money. That, to me, not just harms this year, it harms the future optics of players wanting to come play with the Bengals. Joe Burrow's an appetizing looking dish.
Yeah.
But if you're not getting your full, if you're getting scraps, that's not good. So there's that problem there. I think there's a happy medium to this solution. It just can't be achieved right this second. That's why this is so – it was such a premeditated attack on the Bengals almost, because, one, they can't They can't renegotiate the 2 years that he's already signed. They can give him an extra year. They can go into 2026, 2027 for extra money. That they can do. They can't fudge the numbers for 2024 or 2025, which means they also can't guarantee the money, which is really what this is more than likely all about. He's got no guaranteed money left. If he gets hurt, if he tears his ACL and he's never the same player again, Bengals can cut him. He loses that money anyways, and he's physically hurt for the rest of his he's been damaged beyond repair, where he's never going to be at the top of his game. To me, what you just described is a player that's like Myles Garrett, TJ Watt. If you don't have him on your team, you are not going to get where you need to go. So in my opinion, he holds a ton of leverage, and I know people don't think that. I think people think that the Bengals are just going to sit on their hands, which they probably will, because that's what the Bengals like to do. But to me, that's not a great option, especially with all the optics around it. You're having T. Higgins and Trey, two different types of players on the opposite sides of the field. Right. It's just so much to manage. And on top of that, 24 hours before the draft, where Bengals could possibly draft an edge rusher there now.
Wouldn't that be fun?
That's the whole other thing. Is like, it's like we had these plans going into the future, and they probably negotiated with Trey before all this came out, right? Yeah. There's probably been conversations that they've known, but in terms of the optics of it, that's what I'm more concerned with, is the optics of it, how other players view the team in the future.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you guys. Because the Bengals, Zach Taylor in the Bengals, I think there was a culture shift when Joe Burrow got here, a culture that Bengals fans haven't seen in quite some time. You're now looking at the Bengals roster and saying, we have two guys, as Casey just mentioned, two star players on our team that don't want to be here. That seems to me like it could be.
They don't want to be here. Time out.
Yeah, they don't. It's not that they don't want to be here. They want to get paid. Like,
they're threatening. They're threatening.
Listen,
well, that's fine.
That
too.
happens across the league.
I know it happens across the league, but you have two major players threatening you're going to retire or you're going to leave the team.
This is what Casey. This is where I disagree with Casey. Casey says that if you don't do this, you put yourself in an opportunity where players don't want to come play for the Cincinnati Bengals, and maybe that's slightly true. There's also a precedent that I brought up that if every time that you concede to someone wanting more money, then everyone's going to want to do it. I think that's way more likely. Look at the most successful team in the National Football League right now, what they have done over the last 3 off seasons. 3 years ago, before the last 2 years, they traded Tyreek Hill, the number 1 receiver in the league, because they didn't want to pay him. Because they didn't want to pay him. Last year, they pay the second best defensive tackle. Now he'll be the best defensive tackle because Aaron Donald retired. In the league, they didn't want to pay him. He sits out for week 1, and eventually they did concede to that. And on top of that, they let their star left tackle walk out the door with Orlando Brown. Like, this isn't unique to Cincinnati. I know that this whole winning window is unique to Cincinnati, so now we're kind of hitting the panic button because it's something that we haven't seen before, that we have really good players that all want to get paid. This isn't unique. This happens across the National Football League because of the way that it's set up. The same reason that Trace comes in here and yells, the MLB is rigged, the MLB is a terrible situation, is the same reason that we come in here and we're talking about the situation where we have to get rid of T. Higgins, where we can't pay T. Higgins and pay Trey Hendrickson, is because, unfortunately, they're in a league that the players don't get as even of a shake as the owners do. That's just what the NFL is, and that's the way that you have to operate business. You pay the quarterback, and then you kind of figure out where everything falls. We have a team-friendly deal with Trey Hendrickson. If he wants to renege on that, God bless you. I'm not. If I'm the Cincinnati Bengals, I'm not doing it. I am not doing it because I can't have every single player that's on a team-friendly deal walk into my office and say, hey, I need more paid. And I'm not worried if it looks bad across the NFL that, hey, this team doesn't pay there. No team does. And the team that does pay every single player that has a great year probably aren't very succceссual.
And I would add to that. Let me add to that, too, really fast, is this. I think that gets overblown. I'm not saying that what you're saying is right. The perception of the league and all or perception of the franchise and whether or not you're going to get a free agent to come here versus there. I believe in loyalty, yes, but I also am not naive to the idea that the vast majority of the time guys sign with certain teams, Casey, is because of what they're going to get financially and what their guaranteed contract looks like and what the situation specifically looks like in that spot for that franchise. A la, they were unbelievably loyal to a lot of these guys, right? I mean, you could say they've been unbelievably loyal to Joe Mixon for all. I mean, I know that people are going to say they won't, but they have been. Like they have been.
Yeah.
You go look at the Patriots, they cut guys left and right all the time. Guys that just helped them win the Super Bowl.
Right.
They would just cut them. They'd say, forget it, you're gone. This is a business. At the end of the day, guys are not going to look at franchises and be like, Mike Brown, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. You know why? Because he helps out. That 5 years ago, Trey Hendrickson had a breakout year, and they ended up just paying him because out of the goodness of their heart. They're not going to do that. We all know that. At the end of the day, how much is he actually worth is what I'm getting at.
But here's
because until we discuss that, we're just talking about whether or not the morals of staying with the contract or not staying with the contract is right. You say he has a lot of leverage. Does he, though? If they signed a defensive end in the first round this year, do they not believe in Murphy? Like, at some point, you say to yourself, okay, we got guys that can possibly semi-replace him. And if he doesn't want to come back, so be it. To be fair to you, right, if it gets down to week 1 and week 2 of the NFL season and Hendrickson's sitting at home and they realize, you know what, just like the Chiefs did, we got to figure out a way to get Jones back in the building. We can't win a Super Bowl without him. It's impossible. So you know what? I would also push back on your point in saying just because you do it one time doesn't mean you're going to have to do it every time. It just comes down to whatever you value Trey Hendrickson at. If the Bengals think it's worth $10 million guaranteed money to be like, hey, we want to have a top-end pass rusher for this year because we think we can win a Super Bowl, then I would say I wouldn't just close the door to the idea of paying him because you just think, oh, well, I'm going to set a precedent. It all comes down to what are they actually worth. And I don't know what the Bengals value Trey Hendrickson at, but I will say this. We haven't talked about it. If they get offered a draft pick for him, what is his worth then?
Yeah, so I think we touched on it a little bit. We said low first, high second.
And if you get a low first, do you take it if you're the Bengals?
Well, I don't know.
Were sitting here. Now, I'm going to push back on you a little bit, Casey. I'm going to try to play devil's advocate. You sat here and you said this Bengals window is what it is. I know I heard Joe Burrow say that the window's his whole career, blah, blah, blah. But we are all not naive here. Like, they have a very, very good core group of guys they have on this team, this roster right now, that they're more than capable of going out and winning a lot of football games in a Super Bowl. You want to take advantage of that while you can. Last thing I was going to say to you was, if that's the case, then you can't sit there and say that, you know what, if I get a top 15 pick in the draft, that, quite honestly, they're not going to end up being like a first-year hugely impact player. I'm still willing to get rid of Hendrickson. Then that goes against what you're saying about the window. Yes or no?
No, I mean, first off, there's a couple different things that have been in my mind since.
Go for it.
For
so
10 minutes.
First off, I'm going to address Reed's point, and then I'm going to get back to yours.
Please.
The Bengals are not the Chiefs. The Bengals are not the Chiefs, and
I'm
they've never operated like any other team in the NFL. They're never going to trade T. Higgins. They're never going to give more guaranteed money to Trey Hendrickson, especially at the age that he's at. That's the difference here. They operate completely different. And so when I'm talking about the optics of the team, when you're getting young players here, they have to break one way or the other. They gotta either go all in on the idea that they're going to be a modern day franchise, start giving more guaranteed contracts, giving pay increases, or they go the other direction, which is not the direction I want them to go, to be honest with you. That's the problem of that argument is, yes, they could easily go to the table with Trey Hendrickson and get a deal done, but I don't think they will. And that, to me, makes the optics of this team. Why would a player who just came off the rookie deal come to the Bengals when they're never going to get guaranteed money? They're never going to be anything more than a stopgap player for the Cincinnati Bengals.
How do the
a 3-year
Cincinnati
deal
Bengals,
is not great for a star player.
How do the Cincinnati Bengals look bad when we gave Trey Hendrickson not one but 2 contracts?
We gave him
an extension. We gave him the original contract and then we extended him. That's signing paper twice. How do we look bad for that?
We don't.
And how do we look bad for giving him an extension after his worst year here, right? 8-sack season in 2022.
We gave him an extension without guaranteed money, though. Like that's the whole.
He signed it.
I get it.
We sat down and he said, "Yeah, that makes sense. Sign the dotted line."
I'm not saying that he's that he's in the right. I'm just saying the optics for the Bengals. They're in a really tough spot, in my opinion. They're in a really tough spot. The other point that Trace wanted to elaborate on more. I think the value for Trey Hendrickson is enormous to me. I think he is up there with the top echelon of edge rushers.
Okay.
And I know he doesn't believe that. But when you lose a guy that is so vital to your team, he had 17 or 18 sacks last year. If you lose him, he damages the franchise. He puts it back for years because you can't find another guy in the draft that's going to give you 18 sacks. Not this year, at least. You might get close,
no, I mean, there's very few
but
guys
you're
that
not
can do
getting.
that, yeah.
And Miles Murphy probably isn't going to get to that.
Very few players can. He's
that's
an
the
anomaly.
point.
He's an
It's like
anomaly.
he
he knows that. That's why he wants to get paid more.
Yeah.
The unfortunate factor is that he already paid for a contract. He already signed
But would
a
you
contract.
rather be hard-headed, and I'll use that term, which is a little, maybe that's not fair or unfair. I think the Bengals are in the right by saying, listen, we signed a deal fair and square, own up to it or retire. That's fine. But at what cost are you willing to do that? And I know that there are certainly, and again, I don't like to compare everything or use analogies because very, very often, or very rarely, I should say, do analogies actually are they apples to apples. But it's similar to what you guys are arguing about or discussing more or less. Is it's similar to parenting. Like, do you want to go back on your word or not? Mm-hmm. Do you want to be in a certain situation with your kids? And then you basically have a double standard one time versus the next time. And I think Mike Brown, more times than not, throughout his at least time as an owner, has shown that he and many people don't like this about him, but you can at least respect the idea that he's always tried to be very, very strict with what he believes in. Right or wrong, he does what he does. And a lot of people around the facility, and we'll get a chance to talk to Jay Morrison here in just a second about this, a lot of people around the facility, I think, like, behind closed doors or whatever it is, maybe they wouldn't say it publicly, but I think they like Mike Brown. Like, they think he's a good man of integrity. The biggest question that this all comes down to is, do you want to be hard-headed here and say, you know what, let him retire? He retires, and then you realize week 8, week 9, week 10, that or let's just say you find out in the AFC Championship of all places that you could have used him. And what did it cost you? It cost you what, an extra $10 million or something that you probably have sitting around? Is a $10 million actually worth just making a point out of? I don't know. It's a good question to ask, which I know there might not be a better person to ask than Jay Morrison. Jay, I'll tell you this. You've come a long way. You've come a long way since the days of having to talk to guys like myself in the random locker rooms of whatever high schools there are. I'm glad to see you. This is actually like almost a little semi-full circle moment of my life here. It's like, wow, you might not even know this, Jay, but the first person I think that ever interviewed me as an athlete was you. I don't know if you have that, if you know that's your distinct honor or not, but you have it.
I did not know that. I do remember you. I remember the playing days very well, and I love those days. I love covering high schools, and especially Hamilton High School. So great to see you where you're at today as well.
Yeah, well, we're trying. All right, well, you know where this topic is going. You know where the center of conversation is around the Cincinnati sports landscape, more specifically the Cincinnati Bengals. I guess I'll openly just give you the floor here. You've probably maybe heard some of the banter that we've had in here about Trey Hendrickson. Where do you kind of look at this? Where do you stand on it and your overall thoughts?
Yeah, I don't blame Trey for trying. I guess, kind of like what I wrote is it a trade request or is it a trade demand? Is he saying, hey, well, I'm going to shoot my shot, and if they say no, I tried, and I'm going to show up and play? Or is he saying, I want to be traded. If you don't trade me or extend me, I'm going to hold out or retire? And that just surprises me that he would, and we haven't heard directly from him, but, through his agent, throwing retirement on the table. If a player even mentions the word retirement, you have to wonder if his heart and his head are 100% in. And that leads you to believe that's not a guy I want to extend. That's not a guy I want to give a bunch of extra millions of dollars to, who already might be thinking it's time to call it a career. So that part of it really surprised me. The Bengals, they're not going to trade him, and I don't think this is necessarily a bad look on the Bengals. It's players using what leverage they have, and if they were wanting out for other reasons, that they didn't believe in the coaching staff, there was some sort of other infighting, that might be a bad look. This is just business. So I again, I don't fault Trey for trying it, but Mike Brown doesn't blink. I'd be stunned if they traded him. I think there'll be better offers for Trey Hendrickson than there will be for T. Higgins as this draft gets going, but it's going to be the same thing. It's going to have to be a crazy offer that no team in their right mind would refuse for the Bengals to pull something off. And I don't see that happening in this draft. So I think you're going to see, I don't know if you're going to see the Bengals make all 10 picks. I think they're going to make some trades at some point in this draft, but I don't think shipping off T. Higgins or Trey Hendrickson is going to happen.
Maybe a more or less overall arching question would be, do you think that's the right move? You think that Mike Brown and that concept, as this game is starting to modernize or things kind of are changing, guaranteed contracts are becoming more and more of a thing. Do you think that kind of sticking to your guns per se, it would be the right move with Trey Hendrickson? Do you see him 100% starting week 1 for the Cincinnati Bengals?
No, I wouldn't say 100% because it wouldn't surprise me if he holds out and this thing comes to a head in some fashion. Yeah, I think it's the right move for the Bengals. If you acquiesce to one of them, then how many more people are going to jump in and start asking for more money or trade me? And I think it's smart to stick to your guns. The concern here is, if I'm looking at this roster, the gap between starter and backup might not be bigger anywhere than at Trey Hendrickson's position. And I might not have said that last year. I might have said 100% it was Joe Burrow in the fall off to Jake Browning, but we saw the way Jake Browning played. That wasn't the cliff we thought it was. Miles Murphy may be a fantastic player in this league, but right now with what he's proven, that's a huge drop off from Trey Hendrickson production to whoever you would put in there. But I think if the Bengals play well and Miles Murphy plays well as Trey Hendrickson is holding out, then he starts losing leverage and the Bengals will win and he'll come back with his tail between his legs or he'll retire. But I think this is the right move. Stick to your guns. Don't open Pandora's box where you're creating a scenario where any player that's not happy with his contract, which is most good ones, is going to want to be forced their way out with the trade request.
Moving forward here, obviously tonight's a big night. Cincinnati Bengals pick 18th. They will be on the clock. And when they're on the clock, do you expect there to be any situation in your mind of moving back or perhaps even moving up? That seems perhaps for most Bengals fans impossible to visualize or a scenario where they would move up to go get somebody. But do you think that they'll trade out of either up or down out of that first pick?
I think there's a good chance. Far better that they go back than up. It's just not really what they do. Now, they did it a couple years ago with Cam Taylor-Britt, but that was second round. It was only 3 picks they moved up. You go back to Russell Bodine in 2014. That was the first time and that was a 4th round move up. That was the first time they'd ever moved up to draft anybody since Kajana back in 95. So it's just not really in their DNA to move up. They value their picks too much, and you got to give up picks if you're not going to give up a player. You got to give up picks to move up. So I could see a scenario where, because I don't know how many first round grades they have on guys, 12, 13. So you get in that 18 range and it comes just a big blob of equally graded players. And if there's several there that they have similar grades on, I could absolutely see them moving back a few spots to pick up an extra 3rd, an extra 4th round pick and really try to hammer some of those depth spots that they need, the interior O-line, perhaps defensive tackle, another cornerback. I would think, I don't know where I put the percentage, but I think that there is a real chance that they do it in round 1. I think there's an even better chance they would trade back in round 2 tomorrow night.
Do you think that there's anybody that's on your board or on their board that they would actually be in a spot sitting at 18, let's just say pick 12's coming up, that they are so excited that there's this specific person still on the board that they would go against all status quo and actually move up? Anybody that you think could possibly be in that range, and or what you think they might be looking for?
I don't think that fits them. I think some teams, if they see Brock Bowers there at 12, might be wanting to pull the trigger and move up. I just don't think the Bengals value the tight end position that way. They went out and signed Mike Gesicki in free agency, who is kind of a Brock Bowers light, where he's more of a slot receiver than an in-line tight end. So that's the one. You know, the other thing is the tackles, and I don't know that there's a tackle on there that they would be so excited about to sacrifice what it would take to move up 6 spots to get. You figure there's probably very little chance the top 6 tackles are gone by the time they pick at 18, maybe 5. In all the mock simulations I've run, the most that have been off the board have been 4 before the Bengals pick at 18. So, you know, maybe it's the top 4 that are gone, and that makes them uneasy, but then they just pivot and they go Byron Murphy at defensive tackle. Or they, if this happens, you know the receivers are going, you know the quarterbacks are going. If all those tackles go too, good chance one of the top 2 cornerbacks are still available at 18, and maybe they go that direction. So I think that's the likely pivot, would to be go away from right tackle if the board doesn't fall right, rather than panicking and moving up and trading away some valuable draft assets.
You may have answered this a little bit with your discussion around, obviously, Trey Hendrickson, but if there was a position of need or something that you said, you know what, the Bengals have to hit on this position, whether it's in the first or second round, that position group or specific position to you would be what?
Yeah, I think it's right tackle, just because they signed Trent Brown in free agency, but it's a 1-year deal. He's got an injury history. He's started 38 games the last 4 years. That's what my math says, 9.5 games per year. Half a year, yes. So I think there's concerns there. And even if you're counting on him to start all 17 games, you need a right tackle of the future, and getting a guy in who can learn behind Trent Brown and Orlando Brown Jr. and also play guard if he's capable of beating out Cordell Volson for a year and then kicking out the tackle. I think that's the position. Other than that, I think I'd be stunned if they don't take a receiver before Saturday. You know, whether that's first round, second round, or their first pick in the third, second pick in the third. But I really do think they need to start kind of the succession plan for T. Higgins. The writing's on the wall. He's not going anywhere in 2024, and he's not staying put in 2025. This is almost certainly his last season in Cincinnati. So you don't have a slot receiver that you feel really comfortable with right now. Yes, Gesicki kind of fills that role a little bit, but the jury's still out on Charlie Jones. I can see them going and getting a guy, second round even, that can play inside and outside, give you the slot receiver you're looking for, also gives you the flexibility. They really want to start moving Jamar Chase around. They started it last year. They want to do more of it this year, really move him around. And the best way to do that is find another guy that you can move around and just mess with the formations and try to keep the defense guessing. And, you know, in almost all of my mocks, I've had Jalen Polk from Washington as their second round pick. I don't know that he's ever going to be a star receiver in this league and have the high end that a T. Higgins had, but he's got a very high floor, and he can do the inside-outside role that you need them to do to have more flexibility with Jamar Chase.
All right, final couple questions here. I'm going to give you a chance to have some internet fame. The internet lives forever, Jay. So essentially, if you can just nail this right, if you don't get it right, it's no big deal. You just don't pull the clip. You just let it float away like it's in the middle of the ocean. But the Bengals, if they do stay where they're at, with the 18th pick, they select who?
If you could tell me the pool of players who are there, I'd have a better guess. I've gone J.C. Latham on almost all of my mocks in the first round. They love the big school guy who's gone against the better caliber players. You've got Fuaga, you've got Fontenot. Those Pac-12 guys, that's just not a conference known for defense. J.C. Latham's going against grown men, really talented defensive linemen in the SEC, day in and day out, meaning games and practice. He's got guard versatility. He's got the bigger size. He just is the perfect fit. It's interesting, though, Daniel Jeremiah, his most recent mock, had the Chargers making J.C. Latham the first tackle off the board at number 5, and you say, okay, well, that's one guy's opinion. Daniel Jeremiah just happens to be the color analyst for Chargers Radio, so it makes you wonder if it's not Latham. Maybe they pull the trigger and go Amarius Mims if he's still there. To go with the guy with the high upside and the big home run swing. But Latham will be my pick for pick 18, assuming he's there.
I tell you what, the Chargers they seem to have rumors galore everywhere. Who knows what they're going to do? I mean, they're trading their quarterback one day, they're getting J.J. McCarthy the next day. Now they're getting, who knows? All right,
welcome to life with Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah. No doubt. Well, he keeps it interesting. We'll leave it at that. Last question. Do you think there's a sleeper? This guy, 3-4 years from now, might be a great player in the league, but, might not be a day one guy. You're overall, if you've seen somebody in the draft that you're like, wow, I'm shocked that's where everybody's mocking him or slatting him to go.
I'm not shocked where these guys are mocked, but I do think there's incredible upside, and we could see them being stars in the league. Once Jermaine Burton, the wide receiver from Alabama, has all the tools, but has a little maturing to do.
Off-field issues, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's a guy that really could take off if he goes to the right locker room, the right culture, the right coaching staff, and gets his stuff in order. He could you love everything about what he does physically. The other one's Brendan Rice. I mean, you can't go wrong taking Jerry Rice's son, and he doesn't have the physical tools of Jerry Rice, but coming from that pedigree, he's going to work his butt off. He's going to do everything he has to do outside of the 60 minutes that he's playing in games. And I think, coming from a big-name program at USC, he's a guy that I think could really bubble up and be something special that you could get. Both those guys you can maybe get on Saturday.
All right, Jay. That's very, very much appreciated you jumping on the program. Let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, on Twitter at Jay Morrison, and then on Pro Football Network, all the stories that are up there are free. I also have 2 podcasts. I do the PFN Bengals podcast with Dallas Robinson, and then Paul Daner Jr., who I used to work with at The Athletic. We've started a new one called The Growler. They're both available on YouTube. They're both available on all the streaming platforms. And then Paul and I will have Bengals director of college scouting Mike Potts on Tuesday night, and we do this show every year, and he's fantastic about how and why they landed on the picks they did.
Love that. All right. Well, we appreciate you, Jay. You're best in the business. The chat loves you. So we appreciate you coming on.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All righty. Thank you. All right. Jay Morrison. Here's the deal.
What you got?
This whole situation with Trey Hendrickson, it's like almost like a if you weren't in Cincinnati and you weren't a Bengals fan, and I think you looked at it from the outside view, you just immediately just think it's just nothing more than a half-hearted, pretty terrible bluff. That's what it comes off as.
Like I said, the most likely scenario for this, similar to the most likely scenario with T. Higgins just playing through a franchise tag, is that Trey said, hey, I had a great year last year. Can you give me some more money? If you don't, I want to be traded. If you don't trade me, I'll retire. And then, like I said, I think he'll sit out for a while. And push comes to shove, he'll play for the Bengals next year. I think that's just the most likely scenario.
I think if you're outside looking in, I think Casey does have a point. When you have 2 top 5 players on your roster, arguably, and come out and say, we're going to request a trade, we want more money, or we're going to walk or retire, I do think there is something to that. Now, how much does the opinion of others weigh on the franchise, the Bengals? Probably not much, but it is certainly something to look at. I think if it was just T. Higgins requesting a trade, it's just business. I think Trey Hendrickson adding on to it right the night before the draft, I think Casey, again, was right on. It was a calculated move. They're going to try to get the best deal possible for their guy. Jay said it. Reed said it. We've all said it. Nobody's faulting Trey for trying to win the lottery here. When I go out and place a 70-leg parlay, I have the aspirations of becoming a millionaire. But do I think it's going to happen? No. And should I even entertain the possibility? Not really. But that's what he's trying to do. He signed the deal. He's trying to walk back on the deal, or trying to add more onto the deal, I guess I should say. And it's just not going to happen. You picked the wrong franchise. I don't know how many Bengals players they've signed when you get to that age 30 mark. Mm-hmm. Probably not many. I don't know what the number is, but the Bengals aren't known for extending older guys. So I just don't understand if he doesn't know the landscape of where he's at or what's going on. But it just seems to me like this was, as Trace just said, a half-hearted attempt, a half-hearted bluff.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what would really do the job. Let's just trade him to the Patriots.
I got two things. One, you're right. The Bengals don't usually sign players over 30, and this is no different for me. I would not give him that extra year that he's looking for, because that puts him at 33. And this is where I'm going to kind of contradict myself a little bit. The size profile, the athleticism profile of Trey Hendrickson, a smaller guy who relies a lot on speed, a lot of his sacks come from just being a hustle up type player, never giving up. Eventually you start to wear down. At that size, you're not a physical freak like you are with Myles Garrett and TJ Watt.
Yeah.
33 is pushing it. So there's that. They could wait until the spring training, and you have 2025 to guarantee more money. And I think that would be that I think is the middle of the road, right? I don't think you should necessarily add a year and make it to where he's paid $27 million to push him up to the higher averages that the other guys make. Mm-hmm. But I do think we can find some common ground to where in spring training we can go to the negotiation table, say, we'll guarantee you 2025. That way, if something happens in 2024 this year, you're okay for 2025.
Yeah, maybe there is some middle ground. I'm just weary, like Jay said, like I've said a billion times here. I'm just weary of giving guys contracts just because they had a break, like a truly breakout year. And like I said, we don't fault him for wanting more money, because he deserves more money than he's going to get paid. Based off what he did last year, he is underpaid. It's a team-friendly deal. That's okay. He signed the contract. He should have to play. That's just how business works. That's simply, and I'm not worried. I am not worried about the optics, as you've said, Casey, as Elliot said. I'm not worried about the optics of T. Higgins, Jonah Williams,
There's no
Jesse
quantifiable
Bates,
measurement
and
for that
Trey
either.
Hendrickson all asking for a trade or asking for it. Because let's look around the league. Like, off the top of your head, do you think of one team like, oh, that's a place that every player wants to go play? I don't. And on the other end, I don't know any places that oh, no player wants to go play for the Jets. No, I think players want to go play for two things: money and championships. And I think it's a way bigger draw that we have Joe Burrow here than it is a negate that, hey, we don't always extend players, right? We don't give players past age 30 contracts. I think both those things are true. I think we're still a landing spot. I still think we're a destination spot.
I'm going to ask you guys this. Hypothetically, let's say Trey really does retire. LOL. Let's just say let's just entertain this joke that he says he's going to retire. Let's say
he literally might. But before you get to your point, Jay brought up a good point. How do you say hey, I'll retire, and you expect us to be oh, well, then you're serious about playing here? You know what I'm saying?
You don't.
Right? It's if that's in your mind, if that is something that you are seriously contemplating, then you can't always give your best foot. If that's in your mind,
100%.
The first time that retirement goes in your brain is the moment that you are a step closer to retiring.
That's when you don't want to be there anymore. It's when you don't, and that there being Cincinnati, they're on the football field.
I disagree a little bit with that.
If you're threatening to retire, you're half in, half out.
That's just part of the bluff, guys. Part of the bluff.
That's what I'm saying. It's a bluff.
Then
It's a terrible bluff.
And then it's one of two things. It's either a terrible bluff or he's already hey, I'm kind of at the end of my rope anyways.
It's a terrible.
And I don't want to extend or give more money to a guy that thinks like that.
That's why it's a horrible bluff.
Or he's hey guys, I was at practice every day. I mean, I seen what you guys got. You guys think Myles Murphy's good? I watched him. He's not good.
No.
You got someone on the other side? He's not good. I'm the only bastard in here that can get to the quarterback, and I'm the only one worth a damn. You guys just let DJ Reader go out the door, so you're in a bad spot, and I know it because I'm at the practice facility every day. So you know what? If you don't want to pay me, that's cool.
Then I'll fold.
I'm done.
Then I'll fold.
then
I'll fold.
Then you
will
say,
fold.
yeah, correct.
And that's fine, but
You
I'm
call the
saying
bluff.
that's part of the leverage from his perspective. To
Sure.
be honest with you.
That's
Sure.
a lot of leverage.
And that's a lot of leverage.
Sure.
I'm not.
If
I'm
you're
not.
going to sit here and argue and say, hey, we want to win a Super Bowl, how much
I'm
are you
not-
paying?
I'm not-
My point is this. How much are you paying Joe Burrow every single year to try to get you a Super Bowl within the years that he's here? A lot of money. And if you think, and I'm not saying that Trey Hendrickson has the same leverage as Joe Burrow, but my point is that if you're going to waste one of the years that you're paying that guy that much money to win a Super Bowl, I know for damn well if I'm not on this team, you ain't winning anything. So you know what? If you don't want to give me $10 million, which isn't nothing to you guys. I know it, you know it. You could give me $10 million. If you don't want to give it to me, then I'll let you burn a whole year watching everything burn to the ground because I know you won't be any good. Now, whether that's true or not, we could have a reasonable debate about. If you don't think Trey Hendrickson's that good, that's fine. If you don't think
Nobody's
Trey
saying
Hendrickson, but I'm saying if you think you can win a Super Bowl without Trey Hendrickson, then it's not a big deal. But if you don't think that you can, then he actually does have some real leverage.
Yeah,
Casey.
and that's kind of that's been my whole point on the other side of the argument. Besides the optics of it, Trey Hendrickson is very valuable to this team. They have $23 million in cap space. They're going to spend $10 million on the rookies, so you still have money to spend. You just got to wait until spring training comes around. And are they willing to do that? Like, is he willing to do that? I don't know, maybe. And is that going to be enough? To me, like I said, I think the middle ground is somewhere where they just guarantee more money, which in 2025, that free agency class, the Bengals roughly have like another $90 million in cap space. And the whole other part of this too, and I said this to some of my friends, I think I sent it to you guys too, how pissed is Joe Burrow right now that T. Higgins is trying to walk out the door, Trey Hendrickson's trying to walk out the door, because they're not giving them enough money when he structured the whole contract to have this window extended even further. Like
This is the part where I'm going to side with Reed because everybody in this league is out for themselves. It's a team sport,
Right.
but Joe Burrow would have done the same thing. Jamar Chase, if it looks like we're not going to extend him, he's going to do the same thing.
but-
Every single player does the same thing.
But Joe Burrow set his whole contract up to where he's only getting paid like 19 this year, 29 the next year.
Sure.
The cap hits hit later, much later. So he structured his deal to where he's not making as much money at the prime of his career.
If he's going to be mad, he cannot be mad at the organization that is the Cincinnati Bengals. There's a lot of people to be mad at. If you want to be mad at, you can't be mad at the Bengals. The Bengals have done everything right up until this point, and I'd still argue, like Reed said, they've still done everything right.
That's where I
don't
think
understand.
you're wrong,
I just
though.
don't
It's like-
understand how we can look at this situation and say like we're doing wrong by Trey Hendrickson. We've given him a contract. And when we signed that contract, everyone laughed at the Bengals. Oh, you got that guy that just got all those sacks after Cam Jordan. Then he comes here, plays fantastic. Hey, let's extend you. We love having you here.
We're
We'll
not
extend
saying-
you. And then 9 months later, he wants more money, and now we're the bad guys?
No. That's not what we're saying at all. I don't think that's not the point. The point is the Bengals are in a tough spot. They've been put in a difficult position. It doesn't matter who's right and wrong.
Right.
It's that the fact is we're at this
gotta win.
crossross.
You gotta
we
win
gotta
football
win. You
games.
got to do something. You got to make a choice.
You said how pissed
Okay,
is,
well,
you said
here's-
how pissed
here's-
is you said how pissed is Burrow, but at the same time, you can't have the highest paid quarterback, the highest paid wide receiver, and the second highest paid receiver. Everybody in that locker room knows that. You can't have the highest paid player at every single position every single year. It doesn't work that way. It can't work that way. So I don't think it's the Bengals' fault. I think everybody in that locker room knew what was going on. Maybe nobody knew about Trey and throwing up retirement jokes. But yeah, I think for T. Higgins, I don't think Joe Burrow's mad. I don't think he's mad at all.
No, I'm not necessarily about T.
I
Higgins.
think
It was
what
more
he's
about
saying,
Trey.
what Casey's trying to say is that, you know what, Joe Burrow, obviously he structured his contract in a way in which it would give the franchise flexibility over a certain amount of years, one of these being this year, to be able to try to go and win a Super Bowl or be able to go out and maybe pay for somebody that we know in 3 or 4 years from now, they probably won't be able to do that because essentially the cap's going to hit. And I guess, is there a player that's on the market right now that you'd be willing to spend, $10 million of guaranteed money? That's what he's asking for?
Maybe more than that, but I don't know what he's
Whatever it
asking
is.
for.
Let's say it's $10 or $15 million of guaranteed money. Would you be willing to go out and get somebody that's worth what Trey Hendrickson's worth to this team? And the answer is obviously yes. The question ultimately comes down to what And it's valid. Like, every point that we made is valid. It comes back to whether or not the Bengals want to set that precedent. The only pushback I would have on setting a precedent is that if we talk about what the Chiefs did, they did do that with Jones. Because at some point you realize, you know what? We have to get this done because we need them. And we know we need them. We might not need every other person that comes into the door that says, hey, I need more money.
What happened with Chris Jones?
Did he not get what he wanted?
Well, no. He skipped out 1 week. Didn't get the game check. And said, "Oh, okay, I'll play."
All right. Well, then there you go.
I'll play. Believe it or not, these guys actually need those game checks. So then he plays, has an amazing season, they win the Super Bowl, and then he becomes the highest paid guy at the end of the franchise tag. It wasn't because the Chiefs were like, "Hey, we'll extend you now. They gave him money for 1 year. It was nothing changed other than Chris Jones needed money. He didn't want to miss game checks. And I think similarly, that might happen with Trey Hendrickson, that if he wants to sit out for a couple weeks, go ahead. And I hate snowball arguments. I hate it. We use it on politics. We use them all the time in everything. We go like, well, if you do this, and this leads to this, and this leads to this. You hear it all the time. They're bad arguments. But I
would say openly, and I know people might think I'm crazy for saying this. I know this. If I'm getting a first-round draft pick out of Hendrickson, I'm taking it.
Well, yeah, I think we all agree that if you can get a first round,
I mean,
pick,
I'm getting incredible value out of something that
correct.
I never expected to get value out of.
You get 4 years out of a first round trade, and he probably won't equate to what Trey Hendrickson can give you for a year to the end of his contract. But yeah, that's a no brainer.
But I think you could probably you can make the argument that you would get that.
And if someone wants to give it to that, I think we're all in
Correct.
agreement. Yeah, I think we all want that. Like, I think we're cool with that because then you get 4 years of a first-round draft pick. Cool. I'm on board.
I'm also looking at Chris Jones's thing that he did sign in September. It was a 1 year, $19.5 million guaranteed, and he had $5 million in incentives.
That's essentially a franchise tag, Casey.
Yeah, but that's
the same thing as a franchise tag.
But it was guaranteed. It wasn't like.
Which isn't a franchise tag guaranteed if you play?
No. Well, if you play, but
right.
but
and that was the deal. Is like, hey, we'll give you the money that you'd get on a franchise tag, but you got to play.
But if you get hurt if you're in a franchise tag year and you get hurt, you don't get paid. That's the difference.
Yeah, if you don't play the game, you don't get a game check. Crazy. I mean, it is wild, but that's how it goes in the NFL. Unless you got guaranteed money, you ain't getting paid.
But Scott puts it in the chat. Shout out to Scott K. If Trey's getting $8 million from the signing bonus and $8 million is guaranteed this year, I mean he's getting guaranteed money. It's not like he's not getting guaranteed money. So I don't get it.
I'm telling you. You can get mad at Trey Hendrickson for being greedy if you want.
I'm not mad at Trey Hendrickson.
But he's looking at the leverage that he has, guys.
I think it's funny. I'm not mad at him. I think it's funny.
I'm not mad at anyone. Let me specify that I'm not mad. I'm not upset with anyone. Trey Hendrickson had a great year. He realizes that he's underpaid now. As I've said multiple times, he's on a team-friendly deal and he's trying to get paid more. I'm not mad at that. I'm just saying that the Cincinnati Bengals, if they are going to be successful, and that's the hope, that's what we pray going forward, that we have multiple guys like Trey Hendrickson that are top of the league guys. And if every single time that one of those guys want to get paid, they can walk into Mike Brown's office and say, hey, I deserve more money, I deserve more guaranteed, all this stuff that Trey Hendrickson's doing right now, then guess what? You give yourself a less opportunity to be successful when you do that in this salary cap league. That's just the simple fact of the matter, that it's just business. We love Trey Hendrickson. We love everything that he's done. But if he wants to retire and get paid nothing because he doesn't like the extension that he signed 9 months ago, because he doesn't like that extension that he signed on a dotted line not even 10 months ago, 9 months ago, then so be it. And you guys are right. He has a lot of leverage because what does this defense look like without its best player? It was pretty bad last year, right? But I'm just not going to give in to demand. I'm not going to get handcuffed by every player that wants to get paid.
So let's go back to the scenario. if he sits out and he's going to sit through games, right? He's going to retire week 1.
Yeah.
Your defense gets torched. Are you calling him up to negotiate, or are you just going to let this thing ride out? Because I know what the Bengals will do. The Bengals aren't going to – they're not going to do a negotiation.
They're not going to blink.
They're not going to blink. They're going to let this
I'm
thing
not.
ride out. That, to me, is just like the same as Joe Burrow getting hurt last year. It's like throwing away a season almost. It's not nearly as it's not like that completely, but you're basically going down that same road. You're not helping the defense out at all. You're significantly damaging the defense and its chances of winning a Super Bowl.
If your defense is so bad that like it's visible, like it's noticeable. Trey Hendrickson's our best defensive player.
Think about-
million.
We had the
think
28th
about-
worst we had the 28th defense in the league or whatever it was last year.
Think about the record-setting defense, or the one of the worst defenses in the league when Lamar Jackson was doing pirouettes on us on defense. That's what it would look like. You're losing DJ Reader, you're losing Trey Hendrickson, and that defense would be horrendous. It would be.
My argument to that would be
I'm
one
not-
guy is not the end all be all of an entire defensive unit.
But we lost DJ Reader.
Correct.
That's
I'm
my point.
I'm not gonna let a gorgeous girlfriend who does whatever she wants out at the bars every weekend strong arm me into being in a relationship with her because she's like, oh, what else are you gonna do? You're gonna be lonely without me. That's what I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that.
That's fair, but I would say that if you've been lonely for a really long time,
All right.
and you've never had anybody ever in your life that's interested in you,
Where else are you gonna go?
that's a good point. You might put up with it.
But Trey Hendrickson.
But Trey Hendrickson's, I don't know if he's that guy.
doing a Castellini.
Where else
like
you go?
Joe Burrow could do it, if we're being honest.
100% he could. Let me ask you this: if we play that scenario, he retires. Trey Hendrickson retires from the game of football. He doesn't want any more money. He's done. He's packing it in. He'll go do something else, I guess. When that happens, how much money does that free up for the Bengals?
So it's roughly, he has roughly 30 million off the table, but it's like 15 this year and 20 or something.
Wouldn't that be the ultimate gotcha? Like Trey Hendrickson retires and then we just like extend Jamar Chase.
That's
like,
what I was saying. That's what I was
right.
saying.
It's just like, all right, we got Jamar Chase now.
That's what I was saying. Do you think that would happen?
If you trade, this is where I'm just a casual with the NFL. If he's requesting a trade or demanding a trade, whatever the term is, does that solve his problem?
No, because then he would need an extension
he would
wherever
need an
he goes.
extension.
Right.
somewhere
So you
else.
not only need to get a trade, then you need to have like an extension to the trade.
That's
Yeah?
right.
Right.
So that's not happening.
I
No, like
could-
let's
I
just
could
say it
see
out loud. That's not happening, guys.
Once
Like that's
again-
not
Not
going to
the
happen.
moment.
You're not
Once
going to
again,
find a
right.
team that's going to say, "Yeah, we'll take the trade and we'll also negotiate with their guys on an extension and or more guaranteed money to make everybody happy within the next what? 8 hours?"
They had 24 hours to figure it out.
Yeah,
I guess.
no.
I mean,
No. And if that happens, then I'll happily say I was never been more wrong in my life. That's just not happening. So it's going to come down to whether or not he's going to stick to his guns or whether the Bengals are going to
Listen.
The Bengals aren't going to give him money. So it's going to come down to whether he
They might-
retires or not.
They might
there's
they
no
might
way.
give him a little. They might guarantee money that he's due for that contract. That is the
yeah, that's my middle ground.
right. That's they're not going to give him more money. They might give him half of the money that
I
he's
don't know,
guaranteed.
but he's getting up
But
there in age to where you're the Bengals. That's part of the deal as to why you probably liked it. Is that, you know what, if this
Right.
guy does get hurt and he
Right.
is undersized, XYZ, then you don't find yourself in a position where you have to spend extra money that you know you don't need to anyways. Is he going to walk away or not? I don't know. I mean, the answer is no. He's going to play.
Like I've said
sit here and debate this
14
all day.
times now, the most likely scenario 4 months ago when T. Higgins requested a trade was that he gets franchise tagged and then he sits on his franchise tag and plays next year on a franchise tag. The most likely scenario is that Trey Hendrickson makes this move and that he plays under his current contract next year. That's the most likely scenario.
I agree. I don't disagree with the likelihood, the scenario. It's more or less just, is it the right answer? We won't know until we get into the season, to be honest with you, when we start missing him in games. But I don't know. I just this is going to be in a tough spot for the Bengals.
You know
I don't know
what?
if it's that tough of a spot for the Bengals because at the end of the day,
I'm not too worried about it.
they're gonna get. They know.
No what?
They
No,
know
they're
that he's
gonna-
not going to pass up on that much money, man. Like you're just
He's
gonna
not
forego how much money is he gonna make this year if he doesn't get hurt? 20. What was the number? You know?
I'll look back at it.
Yeah, but my point is like
it's 20 million this year.
20
So
million. So he's gonna make what, $2 million a game almost?
He's gonna make
Well,
like
not less
1
than
point.
that.
That was bad.
1.25
or something like that. Again.
You're right.
And every game that he sits out, he's losing 1 point something million dollars.
You get extra money for the postseason or no?
I don't think so.
Bonuses. I think they're a separate thing from the cap though.
So the NFL just pays that out?
I don't know exactly how it all works. I know there's like it gets pretty complicated. I'm
Right.
sure you know this, but
Doesn't the
You know
winning
what
team
Trey
get,
Hendrickson
doesn't the
needs?
winning team in the Super Bowl get more money and they like divvy that up somehow? And some guys just
Yeah,
give
you
it
get
to like
bonuses for winning it all.
Correct.
the
You know what Trey
locker room
Hendrickson
people?
needs?
What?
Technology solutions.
They do?
Yeah.
from Encore.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? What about Encore?
The Bengals Report is brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data-centered world with the suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing modules to improve efficiency. And
P.
R.
Oh.
D.
Productivity. Not
U.
paying attention. Not locked in.
C. T.
I.
V. I. T. Y.
Nice job, guys.
Thank you.
I wouldn't have been able to spell it out like that. Productivity. The path to innovation begins here. Visit encore.tech. And let me tell you about this lovely bottle of water right here. Pawnee water.
Shake it again.
Delicious. Made right here in Hamilton, Ohio, uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water, and some say the best tasting water in the world. Visit Pawnee Water at PAHHNIwater.com so we can buy this great tasting water. Those guys are supposed to come over later and drop off some cases, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. They said that they would give us some more cases. So
I'd love some.
When did you hear that?
they stopped me out in the parking lot the other day.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Big time Casey.
Yeah.
That's what they always say about you, Big League Casey. Yeah. So let's play a little fun game here that we're never going to remember, and we won't remember to divvy up on it. But
I like
whoever's
that.
right or whoever's wrong has to pay for the other person's lunch. How about that? If we all do the same thing, then I guess no one's paying for lunch. But we're gonna say half a week. We'll just say it like this: Trey Hendrickson plays week 1. Yes or no?
I think
Trey Hendrickson plays week 1. Yes.
Ooh,
Yes.
Yes.
He says yes.
If I was an odds maker, it'd be like minus 400.
Does a contract extension and or some kind of renegotiation makes this bet null void too? To be fair,
Where
yeah,
he gets guaranteed
is that
money?
fair? Sure. All right. So if this is only if the exact situation stays the same, they both don't blink. We're heading towards week 1.
Yeah.
I say he does not play.
So we have one play, don't play.
I'm a don't play guy.
I think he doesn't play either.
What? Guys, he's going to play. I mean, I hate to tell everybody this, but he's going to play.
That's perfect. So
See-
you guys buy our lunch, we buy your lunch.
That's fine. All right. All right.
He's
Mark
gonna
that
sit out at least 1 week.
Mark that down as a bet we'll never remember.
I think it plays out exactly like the Chris Jones situation. If it does, well, I guess both parties win in a way,
Yeah, I don't know.
but depends.
I think he's going to play. I think everybody's fine. I'll tell you what. I thank him very much for the sports talk.
Oh yeah.
Very,
No, I'd be on the phone making calls right now to try to trade though. I really would. Now I don't think that would happen because they'd have to
I think
renegotiate.
teams- I
but boy, and there would be some teams that want to do it
Some
because
teams will call up.
But I'm telling you, you want to talk about selling high. This is selling high, guys. Now I know, and listen,
doubt.
I'm not here to suggest that he's not valuable to the Bengals and he's great and all that. But this is a perfect opportunity for the Bengals to look like they fleeced somebody in 2 years.
How
If
many-
we're being
I have
honest,
it's
this
a
is
two
the
years, right?
Twins Reds situation in
Yeah.
a small way. To
We got
where
2 years
hey,
left.
you can have Tyler Malley, but we want these 3 guys in return. We want these 2 picks in return, and you can have him. One of them's a first-round pick, one of them's a fifth-round pick, and we'll see how it lands.
I got a question for you, hypothetical, before we move on to the Reds talk.
That's all sports talk is, I think.
Trey Hendrickson and T. Higgins packaged
Oh no.
with
Now we're
your
Jay Jettis.
with your first and second round pick to the Cardinals to get the 4th, the 27th, the 35th, and whatever.
Oh, where we get Marv Ham?
We can get Marvin Harrison, and
I'd
then
take
you're
that.
you're still probably getting Jerzon Newton
Yeah.
or whatever defensive
We'd be
player
all the way
there.
back.
all the way back. Yeah.
All the way back.
That is not even a question.
Yeah.
I think that's something that could happen. I mean, I doubt it. It would be a massive
I'll bet you
blockbuster
on that.
deal.
What do you want to bet on that?
Good luck. Listen.
Could you imagine?
Hang on,
though?
let me clarify something that they would like look into each individual player to maybe trade. I don't think they would do a huge blockbuster thing like that, but they might be interested in Trey. They might be interested in T.
I think the
Combine it.
Bengals should trade up and get somebody just out of spite of everybody telling them that they're not going to. And then I want the social media team for the Bengals to give Mike Brown those like sunglasses that you see that they put on the memes on the internet where they're like the black with the little white squares around. You know what I'm talking about? I don't know. Hopefully you do. And they should have him wearing those with his like feet up on a desk. That would be an all-time break the internet moment for the Bengals.
That would be very, very funny. But Jay gave his name.
Yes.
Casey, do you have a name who you think the Bengals will draft tonight? Before we end this Bengals
Who'd Jay
talk?
say again?
Latham.
J.C. Latham.
I hate that pick, by the way.
People are very high on Latham.
I'm going to go and I'm going to just do chalk and say Amarius Mims is probably the guy they go with.
That's who you're going with. Reed?
I'll say Byron Murphy.
Okay. Let me think. Let me go.
the
Let me
Toledo-
go Dallas Turner.
The edge rusher?
Gonna need him now.
Jared Verse is a Jared Verse
Boy,
is a
Trey
good one.
Hendrickson just put him in a blender and he's like, well, I guess we're gonna take a defensive end.
Can Quincy Mitchell? That's the Toledo cornerback, right? Can he drop to us? Is that a possibility?
I mean, both corners could drop.
Yeah, I
if-
think they
if
could.
the
Or
teams
that would
really
even
love
be funny.
tackles.
That would even be the better. That would even be more funny is if Mike Brown did the same thing and they just drafted a defensive end.
Yeah, and it's like how much leverage you got now, big dog.
That's right. Leverage. What leverage?
Every pick.
I mean, I know why they don't, but boy, that would be fun. Like, can we just have fun sometimes in sports? We don't have to take everything so serious. Mike Brown could just do some funny bits today. We need his what is it? Is it his granddaughters? You guys know this. I don't as a Bengals fan. Who gets all the credit now that the Bengals culture
Blackburn?
has changed?
Katie Blackburn, yeah.
And the relationship to Mike Brown is.
I don't know.
I don't know that. I really don't know that. I know they're
I'm
Browns.
sure the chat will know. The chat 100% will know that. All right, Cincinnati Reds. We don't really have to take any breaks today. Yesterday, I did say I made a formal apologies to Santiago Espinal, so kudos to him. I'm glad that he had a couple good games, and you know what? The Reds need it because they're in a spot right now over the next. Like I said before, this isn't hyperbole. I think the next 30 days for the Reds, if they can just find a way to even if they're semi-drowning, I'm okay with it. I just don't want to be dead.
I don't know about again. Reed and I talked about this on that show, whatever show that was this week when Reed hosted. At some point, your expectations have to shift a little bit from all right, survive and advance. Even if we don't even survive, just advance a little bit. Even if you're a little below 500, like that's okay.
Yeah.
Eventually, I'd like that expectation to be like,
I agree.
We have to beat some of these teams. We can beat the Diamondbacks. We can.
Yeah, we also have
we can
Santiago Espinal playing every day.
You just said you'd apologize to him.
Yeah, but my point is that when you see these lineups out here every day, you can't say that with a straight face. If Marte, McLean, TJ Friedel, who else am I missing right now? I'm sure I'm missing guys.
We're missing Matt McClain. We're missing a lot of people.
But my point is that if you have a full roster, I wouldn't be saying these things, but we don't.
That's fair. I guess that's
half
fair.
our team's sick, half our team's hurt. No Jake Fraley, no Jonathan India.
That's more than fair. I just think at some point that expectation has to change. Whether or not you're injured, I know that's a tough argument to make because you are injured and you are missing key pieces. But if you're injured to a point where you just can't compete with the Arizona Diamondbacks or the San Diego Padres, maybe your team wasn't that good. I think the team is that good. Despite losing those guys, I think the team is still good. I think the starting pitching has been pretty damn solid so far. And if that continues, I do think the Reds will finish this little stretch with an above 500 record. That's what I expect. That's what I hope. That's what I hope happens. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm okay with being 6 games under 500, 5 games under 500 through this stretch, just because some guys are hurt. I'm not going to say that. I think that goes against what I believe in as a fan, what I think this team's capable of being, despite all the injuries and illness. So yeah, I think this is a tough stretch. Winning this series is a big step forward.
I mean, taking 3 of 4 from the Phillies with the position
5
they're
of
in
7
right now is crazy. Like, I'm not saying
5 of 7 from the Phillies is unprecedented. Yeah,
it's
correct.
unreal.
It's great. It's great. And that's what winning teams do. That's what winning teams do.
But that's where I guess there's like this fundamental disconnect between my thought process and the one that you're having, is that I don't look at this team right now and think, wow, we should be taking series from all these teams that are very, very good.
I'm not saying they have to. I'm saying I expect it. See, this is where the fan base starts eating themselves up, because Kirby's in here. He's saying they just won the series against the Phillies. Now we're saying you have to win more series. It's like, yeah, you have to win series to be competitive. Yes. You have to win. You have to win series that matter. You have to beat good teams in a regular season. You can't just beat the junk.
So this all came out when I hopped on when you were hosting by yourself, and you guys were talking about that you guys are in a very hard stretch about to come on. Which, by the way, I think that's not unique to the Reds. I think that's unique to the National League, because I think there are so many competitive teams in the National League.
Speaking of which, is the Central the best team in the best division in the National League? Some are asking.
The East is pretty good, and so is the West. I don't know.
Well, yeah, they have some top level, but they have some horrible bottom teams, which maybe the Cardinals are terrible, but we'll find out.
Right, yeah. They each of those divisions have a team that's terrible. But regardless, the National League's very, very competitive. But I just saw you ask the question, like, would you take 13 and 17 over the next 30? And everyone said, like, yes. For the most part, I think the majority said, yes, I'll take being under two games under 500 over our next 30 games, all that stuff. And I just, like, thought to my head is, like, I feel like those are conflicting, because I know a lot of people are hurt. A lot of teams are dealing with injuries, and I keep saying that. It's not a unique thing. Reds maybe more than others. But, like, if you think that you're a team that can compete in the postseason, then I think you've got to be able to compete all the time. And also, I know for a fact that if the Reds went 13 and 17 over those 30 games from when you said that, everyone in the chat said, majority, yeah, we'll take that. Yes, we'll take that. I know for a fact that if that actually happens, people would be freaking out. Like, if the actual process was going on, like, this team sucks, this team's over, whatever. I don't think people would actually be okay with it while it was happening. They can say they're okay with it, but when it's actually happening, I don't think that they will be.
I'm not saying that the fan base would be. I'm just saying that I think that gives the Reds a very formidable chance to still make the postseason, is what I'm saying. You just can't completely drown over the next 30 days, where, again, you're relying on some guys that you probably didn't expect to be relying on. I mean, Martini has faced left-handers pretty significant amount of the time this past week. You got Stuart Fairchild, love Stuart Fairchild, not meant to face right-handed pitching. You have Santiago Espinal, who, again, I'm glad that he played well the last 2 nights, but I don't expect him to be on a playoff team if he's going to play every single day. And I could be wrong about that, because he has played relatively well in years past. And by years past, I mean like 1 or 2 years. So I'm looking up and down the lineup today. It's looking a little bit better because you got Jonathan India back. But again, I'm not. I mean, you still have Martini. You still have Espinal. So I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, you guys are right. It's a very fair thing to ask, is saying, look, at some point you got to beat teams that you think are relatively decent. Yes. My whole point was more or less, this isn't the team. The next 30 days is not the team that we're going to walk into the playoffs with, period. It's not even going to be remotely the same.
You're right.
Not even remotely the same.
You're right.
So as long as again, to put it back in like a football analogy, I'm seeing Jake Browning walk on the field right now, and I know that Joe Burrow's coming back in 3 weeks. Maybe not a perfect analogy, but I'm just hopeful that we don't go 0-3 over that span. If we can win 1 game, it's like, okay, we can still survive in advance. We lose all 3 of them, this is going to be pretty tough. That's my point to the whole notion of the next 30 days. Because if you look at and again, I'm trying to pull up the Reds schedule here, the last 2 months of the season, and I know you can do this all the time, and you can say, well, what does it look like?
I think that's not unique to the Reds. I think,
well, everybody plays the same schedule.
Right.
But there certainly is something to say that coming down the stretch, playing teams in September and towards the end of August and definitely September, there are some teams that are going to be out of it that are going to be vastly different teams than they are right now.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
So I would like to.
Also, there's going to be teams that aren't playing baseball, like the Houston Astros, who the Cubs are playing. We got the Houston Astros at the right time. We got the Houston Astros when they are playing garbage. Now they're going to be a much different team in 2 months, probably more than likely playing better. So that's not unique to September either. Like these are things that happen. This is where people say every game matters, and that's true. That's true. It very much matters. Similar to as a quarterback getting drafted tonight, it matters where you land. It matters when you play teams as well. And I'll push against Reds about, like, yes, you guys have all the injuries, like, right? You have Frankie Montas. You have, I'm going through it right now. Who else? You got
Noelvi Marte. He'll be back. TJ Friedel hopefully will be back.
Matt McClain.
Yeah.
I'm looking. This is the Brewers. The Brewers currently are without Christian Yelich, Andrew Monastero. They're without Wade Miley, Jacob Junis, Aaron Ashby. Well, Aaron Ashby's actually not on the team. The Cubs are without Kyle Hendricks, Drew Smiley, Justin Steele, Julian Merriweather, Cody Bellinger, Seiya Suzuki. They were without Patrick Wisdom for the longest time. Like,
and that's fair. And as long as it doesn't match up with the toughest part of their schedule, then I would say okay. Then you can survive and advance a little bit better. But I'm looking at my schedule and I'm saying, okay, I got guys that half the guys are sick, half the guys are hurt. We go to Texas, we go to San Diego, we play Baltimore, we play Arizona, we play the Giants.
Those are all teams that the Cubs have just played.
Okay, they play Arizona again, play the Dodgers, play San Diego again, then play the Dodgers again. To act like that next 30 days isn't a situation where you can be 4 games below 500 and think that that's actually semi-okay. Then okay. Then I guess you expect this team that was supposed to win 80 games this year by Vegas when everybody was here is actually supposed to win 95. And if that's the game we want to go into and we want to mentally prepare ourselves because they should be above 500.
I guess that's where I'm at.
But I'm just saying in general, that is setting yourself up for false expectations. Because I can tell you on the back half of the schedule in July, you got a whole 2 weeks where you play Detroit, Colorado, Miami. Then you play Washington, and then in September you got a whole week where you play. In August you have a whole week where you play Kansas City, Toronto, Pittsburgh, and Oakland. That's 2 weeks worth of baseball. That's 4 weeks worth of baseball that I just mentioned in basically a 30-day stretch.
The Tigers are not bad. The Royals aren't bad. The Blue Jays aren't bad. Like, those are all teams that are in a pretty similar situation to where the Reds are.
So the Blue Jays are good?
Blue Jays are good.
Yeah,
All right.
what are we talking about? They made the postseason a couple times.
You don't think the Blue Jays are good?
Well, I'm just asking, are the Blue Jays good? I want to know. The Blue Jays are good. At the end of the year, the Blue Jays are going to make the postseason?
I think that the Blue Jays definitely perceive themselves as a playoff team similar to the Reds right now. Probably
They're going to be over 500 by the time the season's over. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be over 500.
Yeah.
That's a promise. I don't think I'm asking for a lot here.
The Tigers and the Royals are both 5 games over 500 right now, and they had playoff expectations because of their bad division.
I don't think I'm saying a lot here. A couple games over 500 is what I expect. Is that crazy?
Over the next 30 days, I do think that's crazy.
Blue Jays have averaged 90 wins over the last 3 years.
Again, that's fine. You could say that about the Cardinals at some point too.
Cardinals have not averaged 90 wins over the last 3 years.
Well, clearly, but I'm saying that they averaged 90 wins until they didn't. I'm not saying that the Blue Jays have been bad the last 5 years, and I just don't know if the Blue Jays are good. That's all I'm saying. Maybe I'm wrong. What? So essentially, we view it as different ways.
How good do you think the division is? How good do you think the NL Central is? Because I'd argue most of those games are going to be competitive, if not all of them.
That's the thing, is like the National League has 15 teams, and of the 15 teams, 12 of them think that they're playoff teams.
So that's where I just think, at some point, your expectations have to change. If you want to say 5 games under 500 is acceptable, you can go ahead and say that. I'm going to say it's not acceptable. Am I going to say the season's over if you go 5 games? No, it's not over.
Right.
I'm just saying I expect them to at least somewhat be competitive here. And in my opinion, competitive is 500 or maybe a couple games above it. That's what I'm saying. I think settling for under 500 is a mentality that I don't want to be a part of.
And like I said, it's not even.
That's fine.
it's
You don't
not
have to
even
be a part of the mentality. I'm just telling you what the realistic expectation should be.
Well, I just also know
Personally.
that if that happened, if they go 13-17 over a 30-game stretch, we can sit here before it happens and go, that's okay, right? That keeps us floating. That it's a tough stretch. We don't have our best team out there. We're all right. That's okay. But as it happens, it will not feel like that. It will not feel
100%.
like that. You sprinkle in a sweep there. You get swept sometime. And you're like, oh, we couldn't take one game, as just part of the symptoms of going 13-17 over 30. I could just tell you that as a fan, it will not feel like things are okay, even though before it happens, you can say it's okay.
Yeah, I at the end of the day, I mean, I'm going to be excited no matter what. The team is competitive. They've proved they're competitive. If they steal one from Zach Wheeler today, I'll be even more excited. So this next grouping of games is going to be tough. Whatever. If Ellie De La Cruz continues to play like this, I'm not really concerned. If I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, and that's fine. You can say that. Okay, if he continues to play like this, what the MVP of the league?
Sure.
I'm okay. But that's my point. Is that.
What's your point?
The CES in Candelario, sure, maybe they can pick it up a little bit. I would agree with that. But like, maybe I'm not even thinking this, and maybe I need to take off whatever it is, the hat that I'm wearing that is pessimistic. Perhaps I don't see everything as the sky's perfectly blue and the sun's out. But I look at this team and I think to myself right now that I don't know. This isn't the team that I came into this season saying, you know what, this is the team that's going to get us to the postseason. I'll tell you right now, if this was the opening day roster and this is the team that we were running out there in spring training every single day, none of us were going to sit in here and act like we had high expectations. Am I wrong in saying that?
I mean, we're essentially we're piggybacking off of two bad players that play regularly now. It's Santiago Espinal and who? Nick Martini. That's really who and Bubba Thompson.
We're without three guys that are very pivotal to this team.
I understand that.
We're without the guy that threw on opening day. What are we talking about?
I understand that. I understand what the team is dealing with.
We didn't have India for how long? And now I do understand what you're saying, which is, hey, we should win every, we should want to win every series. I'm openly saying, yeah, I'm not going to sit there and be like, it's okay, not a big deal. This isn't our bet. This isn't our team. But at the same time, I'm just trying to look at the schedule and say, wow, a pretty bad time to not be healthy. And I know
it's a horrible time.
I know Reed's going to say that every team's got these situations, and maybe they do. That's fine. Teach their own. But I'm looking at it from the perspective that if I were to say I'm going into a war or I'm going into a fight without my best men, this isn't the war that I'm looking to go into.
100%. You are right about that. I'm just saying, and it goes back to Reed. It's if you lose guys, you still have to pick up and to go to war the next day. You still have to. If you pick the fight, you have to try to win it, despite who's on the battlefield with you. And these are the guys we have as of this very second. I do think Nick Martini should be sent down relatively soon. I do think Mike Ford should be brought up relatively soon. And yeah, we're surviving and advancing until Frito comes back, until Noelvi comes back, 80 games into this season. Survive and advance. But throughout that survive and advance, I do think it's possible to take a couple series from some good teams.
All right, so let's just.
I think the starting rotation is good enough. I think the bullpen is good enough.
What do you think a realistic win? How many wins do you think this team should win
throughout the year?
Yeah, at the end of the year.
84, 85.
All right, so then essentially they would need to play 500 ball for the entirety of the year from here on out, right?
Sure.
Yet I just said that they're going to play literally the world's worst teams in Major League Baseball over a 4-week stretch after this next 30 days. If they go over 500, right?
Correct.
It basically from that point forward, this team should win probably 90-plus games if they're able to go over 500 over the next 30 days. I'm just putting that in perspective.
Hypothetically, yeah.
Well,
I don't think the world's worst teams
if they're able to go over 500 with the way that they're perceived to be now, they're a little depleted.
Correct.
Right? If they're able to go over 500 against the teams that they're getting ready to play over the next 30 days, then why in the world would they not go over 500 when they don't play good teams and they have everybody healthy? And if they do both of those things, then they will win 90-plus games.
The 85 wins is just what I expect as a pessimistic Reds fan. I think I can still have the expectation I want to win series and try to go over that. 84, 85,
we just have a fundamental.
84, 85 was my number before the season. I thought the Reds would win 84 to 85 games. That's what I'm sticking with. Sure, things change. Through the first month of the season, things are starting to change. Could they win 90? Sure. Could they win 95? Sure. Do I think it's likely? No. But I'm not going to sit here and say and join the mentality that going 4 or 5 games under 500 here is like, oh, that's okay. It's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, what Reed says, it's fine. You're going to be okay.
Do I want the players
The season
to have
isn't
that mentality?
over.
No.
The season isn't over. I'm just saying eventually your expectations have to change a little bit. Mine are starting to change. And that's okay. That's okay. We can all have different expectations.
Well, that's fine. I think it's easy to say after you watch them take 2 games from the Phillies, but when they get swept by the Mariners and score 5 runs in 3 days, then I said 13 and 17. Everybody's signing up, and it's like every single week.
Correct.
It's
a fundamental issue, but that's what we are as fans. That's what this is.
Well, I mean, maybe I'm not though. I'm just saying, like in general terms, if you're saying that we wouldn't feel that way, I'm openly saying that if they go 4 games below 500 over the 30 days that I talked about, that I would be openly okay with that. I would be okay with that.
So you're 2 games under 500 going into June, and I'm just telling you that it wouldn't be all dandy in Redsville. I'm just telling you that.
I don't give a damn what Redsville thinks. I'm saying more or less the team would be in a position to make the postseason still. That's all. If I got Mike Ford, Nick Martini, Espinal, we're trying to perhaps patch things up from time to time. I don't have the opening day starter for the next whatever it's going to be month.
Sean put it in there and Reed's right. I just don't like the schedule.
That?
The schedule doesn't get a ton easier.
Yeah, it's not like you're playing like the MLB this year is probably the most competitive I've seen it, at least at the onset of the year, to where like I'm looking at MLB standing, I'm looking at just the schedule. As I said, 12 out of the 15 teams in the National League think that they're playoff teams. All 5 in the NL Central, 4 out of the West teams, and 3 teams in the East. I'm looking at the American League. All 5 American League East teams think that they can make the postseason. 4 out of the 5 American League Central teams think that they can make the postseason. 3 out of the American League West teams think they can make the postseason. I mean, and I think that those are like actual expectations and actual aspirations, not like if like the Pirates last year who started out hot, like, hey, if we keep this rolling, we might just luck into something. No, like they legitimately think that they're playoff teams. That's 22 out of the 30 teams. Like I don't think that there's necessarily like easy parts of the schedule ever, and most of that is because the NL Central is so competitive. Now you might get to July and the Cardinals might just be out of it.
I guess that's the crux of the issue. Do we think I guess for lack of a better term, do we think that which we don't know yet, but when I look at the schedule and I say, okay, you have Colorado, Miami, and Washington. Those 3 specifically.
Those are the 3 teams in the National League that do not think they're playoff teams.
And then after that, then the ultimate question comes down to is what tough matchups might be presented to you. Yeah, I think that there's relatively competitive teams, but I think that's vastly different than what they're looking at over the next 30 days, personally.
I think Colorado, the Rockies are an atrocious team. But when you play them in Coors Field, it's a 50-50 game because you don't know where the ball's going. Like, I think that's a hard series, despite how atrocious that team is.
I'm looking at the Reds schedule right now.
I'd love to play the Rockies.
I'm looking at the Reds schedule right now.
All 162 games in Coors Field.
In Coors Field.
Hell yeah, sign me up, man.
I disagree. There's one stretch of this season where it goes Colorado at home.
I'm seeing it. It's July 8th.
Correct.
You go Colorado at home, then you play Miami, Washington. Those are bad teams.
That's it.
And then outside
That's
of those
it.
3 series,
2, 3.
you get to
4.
you play 3 games against Oakland at the end of August.
2 and 4.
Yeah, I'm seeing 5 series for the rest of the year. where those teams don't think that they can make the postseason.
3-8.
Yeah, so I again, we can all have different mentalities. Kirby keeps putting in here that the World Series champs had a losing record against 500 or what did he say? Playoff teams or 500 teams?
Anyway, all I know, I do know
Above
this.
500
I know the
teams.
Rockies are 3-8 at home this year.
Yeah, that was
So,
the
shout out
Rockies
to
are
them.
bad. The Rockies are bad. But
That's where they win all their games. They don't win on the road.
They
That's
don't
when
win games.
That's where they win all their games. If you look over the past several seasons, they win a majority of their games at home. A vast majority, not even a little bit of a vast
they're 4-8
majority.
at home, 2-11 on the road.
They win a vast majority.
They don't win a whole lot, period. But it's beside the point. I think it just as I'm
What's
looking
fair
on,
then? I
as
guess
I'm looking
that's-
on the periphery, and that's how I
Right.
always got to preface whenever I'm talking about the Cincinnati Reds, because I know I'm the hater, and I know when I start talking about them, you guys moan and groan, and that's okay. That's I've earned that. But it's I just think at some point, like, don't you want a little more? And maybe you just don't want to put yourself in a position to get let down. But as a fan, I tend to think optimistically, and I'll deal with the bad stuff when it happens.
Or I can, yeah, that's fine. We're looking at it two different ways, which is
Right.
fine. I'm looking at it from the standpoint of
Like the
saying, you know
Cubs are-
what, this is probably what I should expect. If they play better than that, I'll feel great about it.
Like
I'm
the-
not going to go into this for the next 30 days and say if they play below 500 baseball, I'm going to feel bad about it.
Like the Chicago Cubs have just come off a really tough schedule, and they will continue to play on a tough schedule till the middle of June, and they're doing so without their best two position players. They're doing so without their ace, their best relief pitcher, and I still expect them to be competing every single night. I still expect them to win more games than they lose. And maybe
fine.
that, and
And
like,
the good
and
news
like,
is,
like
is
they
that
always put in the
none
chat.
of us matter what we think.
Correct. As everyone always puts in the chat, don't be fan police. Don't tell other people how to fan. And maybe that's what I'm doing right now. And I don't want to do that. So if you want to, if you think, if you're looking at this next stretch and you say, like, I'm okay with this team going 13-17 and being 2 games under 500 coming out of May, then that's okay. It's more power to you. I just think that at some point, when push comes to shove, if you genuinely think that your team can compete and do things,
I
in
am
the postseason,
rooting for that, yes. But my point is that today, if they were to lose today against the Phillies, they split the series, yeah?
Yeah, they split the series. Yep, 2-2.
Just
How
to
great do we feel about the series of the Phillies if they lose today?
feel great. Feel great.
And we went 500
You were saying under
against the
500.
Phillies.
I got upset when you
That's
said under
vastly-
500. Under 500 is what you said. That's
You said
what
4
that's
games under 500, 2 games under 500.
Well, I'm sorry,
period.
but the Phillies without Bryce Harper aren't the Dodgers.
Sure. No,
They're-
the
they're-
bottom of their
they're-
lineup stinks. I agree.
I'm just saying, like, let's not act like also the Phillies without Bryce Harper are a lot of these teams that we're about to face. We'll find out.
And by-
I hope I'm wrong.
and I'm gonna mention this just because
What's
I
up?
think
Please.
I'm more than right on this.
Yeah.
Last season the Rockies had 15 more wins at home, 15 more wins at home the year before that, 22 more wins and a winning record at home the year before that, 15 more wins and a winning record at home the year before that.
They're 6-19. I got a question for you.
They're good at home.
crux-
They're not
the-
bad at
the
home.
crux-
That's the point.
the
And if you want
crux
to
of
look
the point.
back to several seasons, you can go ahead and look
The
at them.
crux of the point.
That's
was
the point.
The crux of the point. was
Statistically,
this.
I'm correct.
Would you rather? I got a question for you. Would you rather play the Rockies 162 games in Coors Field or play the current Red schedule where they have to play everybody? Curious, genuinely.
Sure, in a hypothetical
No,
made up,
no,
in a
I mean-
hypothetical made up world, yeah, sure, we'll play.
No, then we're on the same
we'll play at
page.
the fun park. But I'd like to be acknowledged that I was 100% correct in that. Not 15. Like I was 100% correct.
Well,
They
I'm
play
saying they're-
significantly better at that fun park, and it's a harder series than people think.
The Colorado Rockies, who in 2021 were 13 games under 500, went 15 games over 500 at home. In 2022, where they went 20 games under 500, the Colorado Rockies had a winning record at home.
I think that's fair on my part. I don't think I'm asking for a lot here.
Last year, they were 7 games under 500 at home, though.
15 games,
And they
better than they were on the road.
Correct. They were 40 games under 500 on the road.
They're better at home.
Was the crux of the wait a minute? Was the argument whether a team plays better at home on the
My
road?
argument was that
Or
it's not,
is
my
the-
argument is that when we play the Rockies on the road, it's not a gimme series.
Right, so we're doing the opposite right now. So you're arguing that over the next 30 days, you expect the Reds to play around 500 baseball, and that's what you hope, that's what you're wishing for, and then you're looking for them to play even at 500 or better than 500.
Correct.
And I'm
Don't think it's crazy.
that when we go into Colorado, we should do what the rest of these teams do, and that you should beat them because they're not very good this year. They're a pretty bad team. But you're saying that they might not beat them because it's tough to play out there, right?
Correct.
Fair enough. All right. Well, we just took the opposite stances on two different subjects, which is fun. Sports talk. It's 12 o'clock. Reds play today at 1:10. Is that right?
Yes, 110.
1:10. So businessman special. At
Super
Great American
chat. We didn't
Ballpark.
read the super chat.
Rip them off.
Reed, if you want me to read this, I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why are we taking Reed seriously when he drives a non-work truck, fake truck driver, sits to pee?
See, also, why would you stand to pee? It's just easier to sit down. Joking. Work truck. My truck has dirt in it. It's a work truck. Don't give me that, Chad. You drive a show truck. Got nothing more. Hey, we will be doing a live stream for the Reds game today.
That's
We'll
right.
be
For
doing a
members.
live watch along for the members. So it's at 1:10. We don't have to do Kenner and Kev. So we're gonna set up shop here, and me, Casey, and Ellie Rue will watch the Reds game together.
And
With you
then,
guys.
And then later, I don't know if we decided on a time just yet, but draft.
Yeah,
We're
me and
do
Casey
a
are gonna
draft
go
show.
live probably around pick 15 for the draft. So
That's cool.
yeah, we'll be doing that. We'll be doing a little Chatterbox Bengals. So
What
be
time is
sure-
that? What times do we have like an ETA on draft? What time?
I don't even know what
Bengals,
time it starts. I mean, the Bengals probably
let's do that real fast. What time are the Bengals going to be on the clock as our guest?
Oh, that's.
I'm
typically
gonna
takes
say
about
it's-
3 hours, and we're right in the middle, so an hour and a half in, 90 minutes in.
How
I'm gonna
long
say
is the
around
clock?
like 9.
15 minutes? How long do you put on the
Does
clock?
it start till 8 p.m.? Is that right?
Yeah, we'll probably draft around.
9:30.
9:30.
Depending on also if we don't, trade up. Prove
We're out.
everyone wrong.
That's right.
We're
Good
out.
point, Casey. Might be right around
Get Dallas Turner.
right.
Wouldn't
be
that
about
be- wouldn't that be-
9 o'clock?
Me and Casey talked about that. Wouldn't that be hilarious if we're just sitting there and we go live with the 15th pick? We're just sitting here talking about all the guys available and everything like that. That it's pick 18.
Yeah, and they
it's like-
draft. They trade back
They,
out.
tra-
of the
they
first
trade
round.
out of the first round, and you're just like, all right, well, so sorry, guys.
Yeah, to be clear, 9:30 is when we're probably going to be live because that's pick 15.
Right.
Yeah. Some people are saying 10-18 last year, pick 20. So
Fair enough.
anyway,
That's it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else to add. It's been a
Short.
long day.
What did everyone learn today? What did everyone learn over this two-hour period? I learned.
Yeah, you want to play that game? Let's do it.
Yeah, we'll just steal it straight from another show. What did you learn? We do that with everything anyways. What I learned is that tiebreakers are more important than having a winning record over another team or having a better record than another team. And I learned that Trey Hendrickson is probably just going to play under his current contract.
I learned that Trey Hendrickson is very valuable to the Bengals.
Incredibly.
Very valuable. He
Incredibly.
might be one of the most valuable.
Certainly.
Biggest-
You
Actually,
could
I'm
make
gonna-
the
I'm
argument
gonna
that he's the
steal-
second most valuable.
I'm gonna steal what Jay said. He's the biggest drop off from any other position in the Bengals. That's an actual thing I learned.
All right, there you go.
about
Elliot,
that?
what did you learn?
I learned that it's okay to be 15 games below 500.
It's 4, and in fact, you still would be above 500 for the season.
That's what I learned.
Right.
And the Rockies, even though statistically they play much better at home, they don't.
Yeah, that really irritated you, didn't it?
Well, it was just like it's not even close to being.
Well, I think it's preposterous.
debatable.
I think it's preposterous to sit here and say that you don't want to play. You don't want to. You want to sit about the next 30 days.
I want to say
being
having
relatively the same.
I said wanting to have the mentality that I can have a
versus
above
a team
500
that's 6 and
record's
19, 2 and 8 in their last 10.
I still hold that if the Reds went 4 games under 500 over a 30-game stretch, we wouldn't be like, hey, this is okay. We're a bad team. I think there would be some alarms going on.
Craig, who told me
And
that
fandom.
the Reds would lose to the Angels and they swept them, is saying that I'm not okay with the series split with the Phillies. Not true. I'm very okay with
I know
playing
you are.
500 baseball.
Right, I
Very
know you
okay
are.
with it. Very okay with it. Being sub 500 is losing. That's what I'm not okay with.
Right, and I guess my point is at 13 and 17, my main point, which I think we've lost the track of what the point was, is that means you're still well within the fight. You know,
100%. The
Yeah, I
season's
don't- I
not
don't-
over.
we're
Yeah, I
getting
don't think-
we're
I don't
getting
think-
ready
I
to
don't
come
think
up on the
anybody's arguing
toughest
that.
3 holes on the course. Let's just set our mindset to where if I'm playing in it and I don't par them all, or maybe I bogey one of them, then that's what it needs. But if
No,
I
it's not
double
that.
if I
It's
double
not that
one of
at
these
all.
hard holes, then
It's not that at all. You're going. It's
that?
not that you're going into the hole like if we don't get birdies here, then it's an abomination. It's going to those 3 next holes and be like, hey, we just need a bogey. We just need a bogey these next 3
Right.
holes. I disagree with that. I think you should go like, hey, let's get a par here. I think that's how you should think.
Yeah.
But I'm
well,
not gonna tell you
that
how to
did
fan.
cost Phil Mickelson a couple. Well, it cost him U.S. Open, for being honest. That mindset, because all he needed to do was bogey the last hole on the 18th, and he'd had a childhood dream. But instead, he pulled out the same club that he'd been hitting all week because he's trying to make par. Went wide left off the tee, end up double bogeying, never won a U.S. Open ever again. Tiger Woods on the 18th tee, stood up there with a 2-shot lead, took a different club off the tee, chipped it up there, tapped his bogey in, won the Masters. So sometimes you look at things in life and you realize that the situations call for different things, and I guess all I'm saying is that Cincinnati Reds, if they don't go 500 the next 30 days, 4 games below 500, I still think they're going to make the postseason. I still think they have a chance to make the postseason. If they win 9 of their next 30 games, curtains. And I just don't want there to be curtains before I start getting some of the cavalry back. That's all. And I understand the sentiment that others are making as well. Nobody's right. Nobody's wrong. We all have opinions. Some of them suck. Some of them are great. It depends who you ask on which one of the two is right. So that does it, though, for us here at Chatterbox. Casey, Reed, they'll be live later tonight. Chatterbox Reds, of course.
We will be.
We'll be live, hopefully, of another winning edition of Chatterbox Reds. See if we can't steal one. If we can steal one today, I feel like you're playing with complete house money. We shall find out. All right, that's been it. This has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Have a lovely, lovely Thursday. Take care.